There's no time.
Lost. Times. Darkness. Tears.
The time is
13.
o'clock. Hey you guys, it's us again. We're back once again for another episode. This is episode 160.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one.
This one, I wanted to cover like kind of a lot of ground on this one. I don't know how long it's going to end up being because I have like a lot of different things that I wanted to cover. And I think I mentioned this, I don't remember what episode it was, whether it was a movie review or a regular episode or whatever, but I actually got the idea to do this show from a few weeks back. We saw the psychological horror movie called Compliance.
Yeah.
From 2012. And I got really interested in it because it says at the end that it was, based on a real event.
Yeah.
So I kind of started looking into the history behind that and, what the truth of it was and stuff. The movie was actually pretty accurate.
Jenny and I were watching it and I was going like, Jenny, man, this is a true story. I remember when this happened because I saw the video evidence from it.
Yeah.
What was happening was this guy was calling all these fast food restaurants, pretending to be a cop, getting the guys that worked there to undress the teenage girls that worked there. Ain't that some shit?
Yeah, for some weird fucking reason.
Well, she stole something, take her clothes off, and they were doing it.
There were variations of it.
Yeah.
It happened like an alarming amount, like over about a 10 to 12 year period.
Yeah.
They don't know if it was the same guy that did all of them, but I'll get into that a little bit later on.
Yeah,
down
we're
the
gonna
line.
get down to the bottom of this, what this was all about, why it went down the way it went down.
Yeah, exactly. And so once I started researching that, which they usually call the strip search phone call scam, that's what its Wikipedia page is called anyway. So once I started researching that, from there, that kind of linked off to PrankNet, which is sort of a loose collective of online douchebags who kind of like got their jollies out of doing similar shit, like, calling hotels, calling restaurants and stuff, and getting people to do ridiculous things, disgusting things, things that damaged the restaurant or the hotel or whatever. I mean, they caused like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage and shit like that. So I got into all of that kind of stuff. And I found all that really interesting, although the dudes that pulled that shit off, I hate them with the heat of 1,000 suns. They're just like the biggest fucking taints in the universe. But like, other than like serial killers and shit. But you know what I mean? So I kind of got interested in that. And then that kind of got me back into like my old like college psychology days, like thinking about, obedience studies, conformity studies, the Milgram experiment, the Solomon Asch conformity studies, that type of stuff. So I kind of wanted to get into this whole thing about, about these different kinds of scams, about obedience, about how people react to it, shit like that. I just thought that would make like a really interesting topic. Like I said, I have so many tendrils like in my notes and stuff, so I don't know how long this is going to go on or how organized it's going to be, but we'll find out.
all this mass psychology and conformity and obedience, I mean, that's real relevant to today too. You can see, multimedia companies and mass media companies using psychology on people, and CIA was big into it. They were actually contracting out universities to try to do all the work to figure out how to control the masses, and it's all using those same elements of mass psychology. We'll get into it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like an interesting thing, and I've always been interested in like the Milgram experiment and stuff like that.
Yeah, propaganda.
So we'll kind of get into all that too, because that's, like I said, that's relevant to the to the phone scams, because you're essentially thinking that the person on the other end of the phone
is an
authority figure and is telling you what to do, and a kind of scary amount of people will do it if they think the person on the other end like knows what they're talking about, or if they're authoritative enough. So we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. Now, before we do that, let's do our little shout outs. Just like the past couple of weeks, my book Faceless Villain, Volume 3, is out, covers the years 1980 to 1999, all the unsolved murders.
Sales have been strong on it too. It's even selling all the old ones. So you
Well,
guys
yeah,
are-
because I feel like I said, now that
Yeah.
like 3 volumes are out, people are like, oh, hey, I was.
Yeah, I guess it is a theory. I guess it is.
I
a
guess
theory.
it is. I guess it is a trilogy, just like I said it was
Yeah.
going to be. So yeah, so some people actually went back. I'm just like I said, I'm thinking about maybe in the future, like maybe next year, in a year or two, like doing them all in one big book, like a hardback, like with, maybe pictures and charts and shit like that. But I don't know. I'll see if I want to do that like a year or two down the line,
Yeah.
so they're all in one
She's
volume.
definitely going to keep writing, though. There's going to be, new subjects and new things to talk about.
Well, yeah,
It's gonna
man.
be
That's, I always got to write something. I always got to be working
Yeah.
on something, no matter what it is.
Yeah, she's got a big fiction book coming out, big compilation. It'll be out in a few months.
Yeah, I've only got a little bit left on the audiobook for that,
Audiobook, right.
and then that'll be up in a few weeks, probably next
Yeah,
month
it's
sometime.
it's in a more consumer-friendly package instead of all these little bitty books. It's going to be in one big.
Yeah, I mean,
Easy
this
to
one
buy.
was fairly big to begin with, but I added some stories to it, and like I said, did an audio version.
We wanted it to be at least 400 pages.
Yeah, which didn't, which it never had before.
Anything around that size sells better. Just does.
Well, yeah, like
people
I mean,
want to buy a substantive book.
well, yeah, and I think I said this on last week's show. It just seems like, you feel like you're getting your money's worth.
Right.
Is basically what it is. So yeah, so there's that whole thing, and then also I would like to thank our newest patron, whose name is Tina. So hello there, thank you very much for your support, and also big shout out to friend of the show, Melanie, who sent us another one of her very generous PayPal donations. So big shout out to Melanie. Thank you very much, you guys, for your support. We appreciate everything that you guys do.
Yeah, if you'd like to support the show, hit us up on Patreon.
Yeah, or like I said, go to the blog, and there's also
Right.
a little PayPal button there that goes
Yeah.
to my. I know it says Hollow Earth, but that's my graphic design company, so it is me. Don't
yeah.
so don't freak out about it. I do eventually have to change that logo, but
Right.
at this point, I haven't figured out how to do it. All right, so let's start by talking about the infamous strip search phone call scam.
Yeah.
Now, even though it's called that, singular, there were actually about 70 of these similar type of things reported over 30 U.S. states over a period of a dozen years. As I said, they don't know if it was the same guy that was responsible for them. A man was arrested, but it didn't work out the way everyone might have hoped. The one that compliance was based on was one particular, was probably the worst one of all the ones that happened. So we'll get into that in a little bit too. But he had done a bunch prior to that. So what this guy would do, the first 2 calls that were reported were actually in 1992. One of these was in North Dakota and one was in Nevada. Not a lot of details about those 2. Like Tom was saying earlier, pretty much what he would do, he would call, it was almost always a fast food restaurant, sometimes grocery stores, he would do grocery stores as well. And he would either say that he was a cop or that he was someone in the corporate office of that chain or whatever. And then he would tell them, it was usually somebody that works there has been stealing or they have drugs or something like that. And you have to detain them, strip search them, and make them do all these humiliating things.
And sometimes he'd call up and he wouldn't even know the girl's name, but he would ask it in a way to get the people to actually give up somebody's name.
Yeah, just like the way.
What's that redheaded girl's name that's working now? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was that's a lot of the way
Tammy?
that
Tammy.
psychic works. Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it was.
Stuff like that.
So like I said, the first 2 were reported. The first 2 notable incidents that were reported happened in 1992. One in North Dakota and one in Nevada. Now, in November of 2000, there was one that was kind of similar to the later one that the movie was based on. And this happened at a McDonald's, just like the one the movie was based on. This happened in Leachfield, Kentucky. Now, the guy called and said he was a cop. And he said that one of the customers in the restaurant was a suspected sex offender and that she had to undress and stand in front of him as bait so that officers could rush in and catch him.
Damn, that's something else.
So that was one of the first notable. That was
Yeah.
one of the first notable incidents, and that also happened in Kentucky, just like the later one did. That the movie was based on.
Right.
So so this guy is fucking calling, and people are doing it, which and I'll say this right off the bat, it's it's easy to say in hindsight, that you just get some phone call from some rando who says he's a cop or says he's like from the corporate office or whatever, and he tells you to do something like that, you know, you'd be like, nah, man, and stuff. But you have to think, too, that a lot of these places, and I think the reason why this dude targets fast food restaurants and stuff like that is because a lot of the employees there are kids, you know, they're like teenagers and shit like that.
Yeah, and they were kind of like rural areas where, you know, people really weren't street savvy.
Most of them were.
And the 90s was just a different time. I mean, it just was. It was pre-internet.
Yeah.
Authority was respected more. Information, it was they were kind of like low information people. Everybody was, even I was.
Yeah.
You just you didn't have access to information like you have back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we didn't really know about scams, or what a scam actually was, especially a phone scam.
Yeah.
You know, so it's easier to dupe people, and you wouldn't even know what was going on in your local area, really.
Yeah.
Because it's just you only had television, maybe radio, and a lot of people didn't listen to radio. Just put a tape in their car.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe when you were a kid, you listened to some local news, but not very often. So you wouldn't know if there was something in your area that was going down.
That was going on like this.
It
would have to be pretty widespread before you would find out about it.
Yeah, people were kind of trusting, I think, from looking back on it.
Well, and like I said, too, this guy seemed to target people in lots of different states. Yeah. And as I said, a lot of the people that he targeted were in, fast food restaurants or grocery stores where even the managers might be, like, really young, might be, you know, afraid of losing their jobs, afraid of authority, like they're, you know, if they really think that's a cop, because apparently, according to a lot of the people that they interviewed, like, you know, that had fallen for the scam, the guy sounded very convincing. He sounded like he knew what he was talking about. He was very authoritative, so I can see, and plus another thing too, is that you have to imagine that the ones that we're hearing about are the ones that worked.
Right. You're not
How many times did he call somebody and everybody's like, fuck you, dude, and then like hung up, which is what I would do.
Had obscene phone calls. We had prank phone calls. People, we knew about those. But this is a whole nother thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually an obscene or a prank phone call is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
You know, you knew within a few seconds that something was wrong with the damn call.
Right.
And I can just remember what it was like back in those times, you know. Especially when you were young, you weren't even really sure how certain systems worked, like how corporate systems worked. Even if you worked for that company, you weren't fully aware of like what was happening outside of, say, like your branch.
Well, yeah.
You know?
I mean, you wouldn't know it, especially if you were kind of like a low-level position, a cashier or something like that. Why the fuck would you know it? You're just going there to get a check, man.
Yeah, like I worked at Denny's and I worked at Shoney's. I knew how that restaurant worked, kind of.
Yeah.
But nothing outside that restaurant. I didn't know how Denny's Corporation worked.
Yeah, the corporate structure, you wouldn't know anything about it. So if somebody called and they sounded like they knew what they were talking about.
Like, maybe it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can see how a lot of people fell for it. Like I said, in hindsight, you can be like, "Oh, you dummy." It's like, obviously, you shouldn't have done what this guy on the phone told you to do. But I don't know, man. I think a lot of people might have fallen for it that maybe didn't think they would fall for it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because especially if you didn't know about it ahead of time, if someone was just calling up. So I really hesitate to call any of the people in here.
Yeah, when we get into the details, there's a certain amount of sexual fetish involved with this. And being pre-internet, some of these people maybe didn't really know much about sexual fetishes outside of what they saw.
Yeah, so it wouldn't occur to them, maybe?
It wouldn't occur to them that this is some kind of like a power fetish thing.
Yeah.
You know, the average person, you know, straight-laced, just fucking blue-collar, middle-of-nowhere person working at damn McDonald's, they wouldn't even know there was anything like a fetish scene.
Yeah, especially like a weird specific
like a
fetish
weird specific
like this one.
Fetishes, and I think that's what was really going on.
Because the thing about
this had to be sexual.
If this was the same guy doing this, which I suspect that it was, he wasn't in most of the states that he called the restaurant, so he wasn't watching them or nothing.
No, this is phone fantasy.
It was just like free phone sex. Not free, because I guess he had to pay the long distance.
It's like a phone sex where no sex is happening.
No, he would buy phone cards. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So he had to buy phone cards, but I'm like, why don't you just call a phone sex line?
Because really, it wasn't anything sexual really happening in this in a certain way, other than taking people's clothes off. It was power oriented.
Well, there was in that one that the movie was
That is
based
true.
on.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
I don't think that was super obvious to the guy who was doing it until he was already knee deep in it.
Yeah.
And then he realized, oh shit,
Yeah.
this guy can't work for the company. I think that's how it eventually. But it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He was doing it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Okay, we're gonna get to it.
Yeah. So, as I said, we're just talking about some of the, like I said, there were 70 of these fucking things. Not all of them were as bad. Some of them stopped, like, pretty quickly. But, yeah. So there was this one where, a manager at McDonald's, like, stripped naked in front of a customer because they said that he was a sexual predator and she was supposed to serve as the bait. Yeah. So, now there was another one that happened in early 2003, and this happened at an Applebee's. And the guy called the Applebee's, and he said that he was a regional manager for the restaurant. And he said that one of the waitresses had either stolen something or had drugs on her or something. And he told the assistant manager that she had to take her into the bathroom and do a strip search, which she did.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how that.
This is in an era. This is in an era when, the legality of such a thing might not be real. You know what I mean? You weren't really sure if that was legal or not. Like, can a company representative tell you to damn strip search
Pro
an
tip:
employee?
it is not.
It is not legal. All right.
And it wasn't then. And it was in the employee handbooks and shit like that, or the manager's handbooks, because that was one, like, in the later incident, that was one thing that McDonald's was, arguing in their counter lawsuit.
Yeah, but they probably didn't read it or forgotten it.
I don't think.
And like I said, these were damn. Like I said, it was a low information era back then. You're like, well, the manager told me to do it. It must be legal.
Yeah.
That was kind of the
so
thinking
I guess
at the time.
it's okay.
Yeah, I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
Man said I could.
There we go.
Yeah, see?
Haven't had that call back in a long time.
Man said I could.
So, about a month after that one at the Applebee's, there was another one. This one happened at a McDonald's in Hinesville, Georgia. Now, the guy called, said he was a cop, and he said that he was with the director of operations for McDonald's, like, upper management. And he told the same thing. He's like, there's this girl, your female employee, she has drugs. You take her into the bathroom, strip search her. And also, a male employee was brought in who did, guess what? A body cavity search, looking for the drugs.
Yeah.
Which means...
he's putting his fingers up in there.
Yeah. Like up in her vag or
now,
up in her butt.
Here's the weird thing. You would
Jesus
think...
fucking Christ. That's sexual assault, yo.
Yeah, well, you would think that the person obeying this, you would think that it wouldn't dawn on him that this was some kind of sexual pervert on the other end of the line, asking him to do it. Because the average person would be like, well, what does he gain from it if it's sexual? Because that fucker's not even here.
Because he's not here.
He's not even here. He's on the phone. Like I said, they didn't understand fetishes and how these sexual motherfuckers work.
I guess not.
Just his imagination was enough.
Yeah.
To get him off. You know what I mean? He was, imagining that it was happening by his command.
I guess.
That's some kinky shit.
That's what I mean. This is like a very weirdly specific fetish.
So
that's why I think this is like one guy that was doing this.
Yeah, it sounds like one weirdo, yeah.
So this poor girl who works at fucking McDonald's in fucking assfuck Georgia goes to work one day, some idiot calls and says she has drugs, and then suddenly some other dude that works at the McDonald's is sticking his hand up her butt or up her vag or whatever.
Trying to find the drugs.
Can you fucking imagine? I don't think I would ever get over that. But yeah, so now McDonald's actually did get taken to court over this. So there was like a little bit of a stink. Now, the interesting thing about it, though, is that like when the later, more famous one happened that the movie was based on, that was one of the bases of the ensuing lawsuits, of which there were several, understandably, was that McDonald's had dealt with this exact same scam before and didn't warn any of their other regional managers about it or didn't like say anything about it. You know what I mean? So that was like one of the bases that a lot of the people later used to sue.
I can see why they didn't say anything though in a certain way.
But that's really something that you need to, particularly because
they wouldn't want to create copycats. I think is part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of like a gray area,
And
though,
maybe
because...
maybe they thought that it was just so rare that it would never happen
That
again.
it would never happen.
They
Well, they were wrong about that.
They didn't want to panic anybody. They didn't want to look bad in front of the employees.
Yeah.
That they had been taken by that. Gotta be.
Yes.
Gotta
Well,
be.
yeah, obviously it had to be something like
Yeah.
that, because it makes them look like they don't have their shit together.
Right.
Because just some like chode can call up
And I also
saying whatever.
I also think maybe that they didn't want a situation where you could have 4 or 5 employees collude to
Yeah.
fake that happened in order to get a settlement out of the company.
Right. Oh yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking
Still though, I don't know. It just seems like something that should probably be addressed
about? Right.
at the manager list, especially because, I mean, there were other restaurants and other grocery stores targeted, but McDonald's was the most common target. For whatever reason. I'm not sure why that is.
Easily controlled people, maybe?
I don't really know. Or that
Young
was
people
just,
working.
maybe the dude just hated McDonald's and he just, like, particularly didn't like McDonald's. I don't know.
Probably just felt comfortable calling him
Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
because he
But,
dealt with them so many times.
yeah. So there was another one in July 2003, which was actually in Panama City, Florida. This was actually at a Winn-Dixie store, which is a grocery store, in case, because I know other parts of the country don't have Winn-Dixie. Yeah, so it's a grocery store. Now, he's the same thing. He was a store manager at the Winn-Dixie. He got a phone call from a guy who said that he was a police officer. The guy described a female employee vaguely. And then the manager was like, oh, you mean such and such? And he was like, yeah, that's her. So the caller then requested that this girl be taken into an office and strip searched. So they made her take off all her clothes and made her pose in various ways. I'm not sure what ways they're talking about, but I can imagine. So this actually was cut short because one of the other managers came in the office and was like, what the fuck is going on in here? So then the guy hung up. Now, there was another one in March of 2004, and this happened in Fountain Hills, Arizona. This was at a Taco Bell, and the same kind of thing happened. Man called, claimed to be a police officer, and subjected one of the female employees to a strip search. Now, the most famous case of all of these different phone scams, like I said, of which there were about 70 that they have on record, was the one that happened in Mount Washington, Kentucky, and this is the one that the film Compliance was based on. This happened on April 9th, 2004, and this was also a McDonald's. Now, the assistant manager, whose name was Donna Summers, not that one. That's just Donna Summer, though, isn't it? Without an S on the end. So this is Donna Summers, totally different. This is a white person. and not an awesome singer or anything like that, as far as I know. So she's the assistant manager. She gets a phone call from this guy who says that he's a cop, and he calls himself Officer Scott. Now, he gives her kind of like this vague description. Oh, it's like this little bitty, slight blonde girl who was like working the front counter or something. She, like, one of the customers was in here and accused her of stealing something. So Donna Summers helpfully goes, oh, you must mean Louise, who was Louise Ogborn, who worked at the restaurant. I believe she was only 17 at the time. So she was working at the time. So the cop, Officer Scott, quote unquote, he says, okay, well, Louise has to be searched at the restaurant because we can't, like, the cops are busy and, like, this is a really minor matter. So you guys will have to do it there because we don't have time for this shit. Even though we had time to call you and, like, say, but, you know, whatever. So it's like, we don't have any cops around to do it, so you have to do it. So she takes Louise into the office and tells her to take off all her clothes. Then the guy tells Donna, the assistant manager, okay, we'll take all her clothes and put them in a bag and lock them in your car in the parking lot. So Donna did that. So then she gives Louise an apron because Louise is sitting there in the fucking McDonald's office naked. So they gave her an apron to cover herself up. Now, there was another girl that worked there named Kim Dockery. She was also an assistant manager. She was also present. And she was supposed to be there, according to this dude that was calling. Like, she's supposed to be like another witness to the search.
He's got them all deputized.
That's exactly what he was doing.
Right. He's molesting women by remote control.
Yeah,
funny.
that's exactly what it is. Remote control molestation.
Remote control, yeah.
That's another T-shirt right there.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like a certain breed of asshole.
Yeah.
We have so many shirts we have
Yeah.
to do, you guys. So Kim Dockery, she was only there for about an hour, and then she had to leave either because her shift was over or she had other shit to do or whatever. At this point, Donna told the guy on the phone that, you know, I'm actually at work and I should actually be working, you know, like at the front counter and like serving customers and whatnot.
Yeah.
So the guy calling says to Donna, oh, well, then you need somebody that you trust to come in and like watch this girl until we can get out there and like do whatever it is we need to do. So she tried to, at first, she tries to bring in this other guy who was named Jason Bradley. He also worked there. He was a cook. So she's like, okay, well, you need to go in there and watch Louise. And so he goes in there for a little while. The poor little Louise is sitting there with the apron on. And the caller says to Jason, okay, well, now have her take the apron off and describe her to me. At which point, Jason's like, no.
Yeah.
He didn't want to do it. He didn't call the cops or anything like that, but he just said, no, I'm not doing that. So then the caller's like, okay, well, he gets back with Donna and he's like, all right, well, that guy's not cooperating. So find somebody else that you trust, you know, so we can get this ball rolling or whatever it was that he said. So at this point, Donna Summers, because that just makes me laugh that her name is that.
Yeah.
Then she calls up her fiance, whose name was Walter Nix Jr., who didn't work there. He like worked somewhere. I don't know what the fuck he did, but he worked somewhere else. So she calls him up and says, hey, are you doing anything? You need to watch this teenage girl who I'm supposedly holding, like, for the cops because she stole some shit. So you need to come here and, like, watch her and, like, help me out or whatever.
Yeah.
So he fucking turns up. Now, he comes in there and gets on the phone with this jackhole on the phone that says he's a police officer. And he talks to this dude for 2 hours and does exactly what this dude on the phone tells him to do for 2 hours. These included, okay, so they ask Walter, they're like, okay, well, take off her apron and make her dance.
Yeah, and she's like, what, a 16-year-old girl?
She was 17, I think.
17-year-old girl, yeah.
Make her do jumping jacks.
Yeah.
While she's naked.
Yeah.
In this little fucking office.
Yeah.
Then he said, make her put her fingers in her vagina and show it to you.
Damn.
So that was part of the quote unquote
And she's
search.
doing it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
she said she was scared to death. She
Right.
didn't. She thought that was really a cop and that she was going to
Damn.
get in trouble. She might have also been afraid she was going to lose her job. I don't know.
Right.
So then he says,
I got a suspicion that this dude, what's his name, Walter?
Walter.
I think Walter knew something was up. I'm
I kind of
gonna
think so
say
too.
that. I'm just gonna
I
say
think he was thinking like, oh, well, this guy's telling me on the phone that I can do this. So
they're
I
all
guess it's
believing it.
okay.
I'm just gonna play along.
I kind of feel
Yeah.
like that too.
Right.
But, you know. So,
How old was he?
I don't know, because I saw pictures of him from court and he looked kind of old.
Yeah.
He's like middle-aged.
Yeah, this is the guy that I saw in the video. Kind of a heavy-set, middle-aged guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That dude was about 40, I think.
At least.
Yeah. And I think he knew better.
Yeah, I think
I think
he
he
did
knew
too.
better.
I think he did too.
I think he knew it was some kind of hoax. But everybody else was believing it, so he was
going along, and he's
go
like,
along
oh,
with it.
well.
He gets to see a 17-year-old girl jump up and down and do all this shit.
And
That's it.
various other things.
Yeah, because I think he was asking for descriptions of it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He knew.
Yeah,
That dude should have been locked up.
he was.
Yeah, okay.
Spoiler alert.
Been a long time.
Not for very long, but.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so she had to like put her fingers in her vagina and show him that. Then she had to sit on the guy's lap and kiss him.
Yeah, see, you would know.
She said, no, I don't want to do that. And then the caller was like, well, now you have to spank her until she says that she will. And the guy fucking does it.
How could you believe it at this point? See,
That's what I mean. I'm willing to give some of the people in this latitude.
Yeah.
But once it gets to that point, you know goddamn well that this is some sketchy fucking shit.
Yeah, even back
right
in
here.
94, you would know that was some bullshit.
Well, this was like 2004.
2004?
This is 2004.
Okay, so I thought it was the one that was in 94. Okay,
No.
yeah. Oh, yeah. You would definitely know by 2004.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And especially an older guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you'd think he would know better.
Yeah, by that time you definitely would know.
So yeah. So this girl, and then, so she gets spanked. Then the caller's like, we'll give her the phone. And then he starts yelling at her, like, you know, you better do what this guy tells you to do or you're going to get, like, in even worse trouble and all this other kind of crap.
See,
So
the one that I saw the videos from, I don't think was this 2004 one. I think I saw the one from the 90s. Because I remember this shit going on when I was in the Army. And I think I might have just gotten out of the Army when I saw the videos. So, am I right on that one? It was a black and white security film. A kind of a heavy set guy.
no, the
And a
ones
girl.
from this were in color.
Okay, so no, I saw one of the older ones then.
Yeah.
They were putting them on television. It wasn't explicit. You know what I mean? It was
Well,
only
yeah,
just
you
like
couldn't see anything in this one
Right,
either.
yeah.
I mean, you could see, like, you knew she was naked, but they, like, blurred it out.
Okay, well, they were showing some of the footage of this on the news
Yeah.
of these calls.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was what could have been this one, 2004. No,
Yeah, this was 2004.
the one that I saw was during the 90s.
Yeah.
So,
Well, like I said, there were a lot, like I said, they started in 92. There were a couple in 92 that were kind of notable, but then there weren't really any more notable ones until like 2003 or somewhere
Yeah.
around there. But I think they were going on like all that time.
yeah, there was that one guy doing it. How much on bet?
I think it was too, because like
Yeah.
I said, that is a very, very specific kind of thing, and we'll kind of get into that in a minute. So this poor little girl has been sitting here naked, having to do all this creepy shit. She gets spanked, all this other kind of crap. She's been in this office for 2.5 hours with this fucking dude sitting there, like on the phone. Now the guy on the phone says she has to give this Walter guy a blowjob.
Yeah, why would the cops ask you to do that? See,
Right. See, that's what I mean. I think, like I said, I'm willing to give some of the victims some latitude, like, as long as the shit wasn't too outrageous. But the second some cop, quote unquote, says to you on the phone, oh, well, a
You gotta blow this
17-year-old
guy.
girl has to give you a blowjob now.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no plausible deniability
There's
there.
no conceivable reason
No.
that a cop would ask you to
Fuck
do
no.
that.
Fuck no.
A cop might ask you to give them a blowjob.
Yeah. Yeah, but not some other
But
dude.
not some other dude that they can't even see. So, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
No.
So I kind of feel like this guy was like, oh, well, the cop said I could.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's the situation.
Did she do it?
Apparently, yes.
Damn, that girl's dumb.
Well, like I said, she seemed like a sweet little girl. Like I saw
Yeah.
her on the thing, and she was like super terrified, and she thought she was going to get in trouble. And and I just think
and
she'd been sitting there for so long, and I don't think she like knew what
Maybe
the
she
fuck
thought
was
she was
going
going to go to jail, and that was their way to get out of it.
She did
Okay,
think
yeah.
she was going to go to jail.
So
I mean, she said that
yeah.
later on.
Okay, so he had her...
Because the cop like threatened her, said you're
Right.
going to get in worse trouble if you don't do what I say and you
Okay.
don't do what this guy says. And she
Damn.
didn't know. She was 17.
Damn.
You know what I mean? Like I said, if there's any fault, one, obviously the dude on the phone, and this other fucking chode that listened to everything that he said.
Oh, that show should have known.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said. So
He knew. He knew.
So she does that shit. Now, keep in mind that Donna Summers, the assistant manager, this is her fiance.
Yeah.
Right? Now, she has to keep coming back into the office periodically because she's still working. She's still on her shift. Now,
Yeah.
when she comes back in the office, then the caller says, okay, well, she's coming back in, If she comes back in, just, like, put the apron back on the girl and, like, act like nothing happened, which is
Yeah.
what she did. So, after all this... when the manager keeps coming back in, then finally Walter Nix starts saying, oh, I started feeling bad about it. I'm like, oh, just now you started feeling bad about it? Okay. You know what I mean? So the caller says, okay, well, you can leave now, but Donna has to find somebody else to take your place. I mean, this has been going on for like hours and hours and hours.
Right.
Like this dude that's calling, it's like, doesn't he have anything better to do? I guess not. So he's just like being on the phone with the McDonald's for 5 hours, getting them like a
I got a
little naked girl
story.
to
I got a
jump up and down.
story. I got a story to tell.
Okay.
People are gonna love this because I go off the rails every now and then.
Like you do.
Remember, I got kind of a story that's related to this.
Okay.
All right. Remember in Mountain Poltergeist case I was talking about Big Jimmy?
Mhm.
He was the one that's sitting on the table, or sitting on not the table, sitting on the damn couch.
Mhm.
And when the Hot Wheels moves, man, he was the one that ran
Yeah.
from the poltergeist. Well, that was Red's buddy at
Yeah.
that time, right? And he was a chef that worked at Round Table Pizza.
Yeah.
This is back in the 80s, you know? And he was, man, that dude must have weighed 250 pounds. He couldn't have been more like 300 pounds. Dude was fucking, like, you know, morbidly obese.
Yeah.
Okay. He was a cool dude, though, man. We used to go there and he'd make free pizza for us and shit.
That's always a plus.
Yeah. Well, he was in there working nights one night, and it was just him and one waitress. And she was this fine-looking waitress. I remember her, okay? I don't remember her name, but I remember her. She was probably about 20, maybe younger.
Yeah.
Well, 3 guys came in there and robbed the place. Pistols. With a pistol.
Mm-hmm.
And cleared the place out. Well, they didn't rape that girl. But what they did was they pointed a gun at Jimmy and made him have sex with her in the back. All right?
Holy fucking shit. You
Yeah.
never told me that.
Yeah, well, didn't really come up. But he didn't do it. He couldn't do it. All right? And they were
Well,
just
good for him.
Well, he couldn't do it. Couldn't get up, and he was so fat. You know what I mean? But they were just laughing their asses off. They laughed and just ran out with the money. Yeah.
The fuck is the matter with people?
I don't know. They didn't want. I guess they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave behind any evidence. You know what I mean? So they just wanted, I guess, have what they thought was fun before they fled the scene. They were closing when they robbed the place. It was out in California.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, and they pointed a gun at him and told him to fucking rape her. And she was taking her clothes off. He took his clothes off. And he started to pretend like he was doing it. They just started laughing so hard, then they ran. Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Now,
Dudes are the
she
worst.
quit, of course. You know what I mean. I don't think you can charge a guy for that.
Well,
You know what I
no,
mean?
because he
Right.
was. I mean, it wasn't his fault.
Wasn't
he
his
was.
fault.
He was afraid that he was going to get killed.
Yeah, right. He couldn't have sex with her.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't in the mood. You know, got a dude pointing guns at you and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
that might
that too.
give you
know,
some performance anxiety.
and they just, I guess the sight of it, they just started.
They just thought it was so funny.
They just thought that shit was hilarious, and then they ran out with all the money. And she quit.
That's fucked up.
She quit, but he kept working there though.
I don't blame her for
Yeah.
quitting.
Yeah.
I would quit and move
Yeah,
as
she
far
quit the
away
next
from
day.
there as fucking possible.
Quit the next day. She didn't come back.
Fuck that fucking shit.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Mhm.
Ugh. I didn't want to imagine it. That's horrible. So
Yeah.
yeah. So this poor girl has done all this kind of crap. And the caller says to Walter Nix, who, as I said, is only just now starting to get uncomfortable with the whole situation, or so he claimed. The caller says, okay, but you have to find somebody else to replace you. Now, Walter finally left the restaurant. Reportedly, as soon as he left, and they showed this in the movie Compliance as well, that as soon as he left, he was in his car and he called a friend of his and said, quote, I have done something terribly bad. Yeah, you did.
Yep.
Should have stopped that shit. So, after he left, Donna Summers, now, as I said, Donna Summers, she didn't know about the oral sex and the vagina flashing and all that other stuff. I mean, because she had been out front working.
Yeah.
So she didn't know about that at the time. So she's looking around for someone to take Walter's place because this douche is still on the phone and still saying, I need somebody else there to watch her and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, look, I'm busy. I'm working at the front desk. So then she sees this guy named Thomas Sims. Now he worked there as the maintenance man, but he wasn't on shift at that time. He had just come in to get an ice cream cone or something like that. And so she says to him, hey, can you come in the back office and watch this girl, and told him the whole story and everything like that. Now, he goes back there and starts talking to the dude on the phone, but this guy immediately was like, no. He's like, who the fuck are you? I don't know what the fuck is going on. So he immediately knew something sketchy was up, and he just refused. He's like, I'm not fucking doing it. Now, the fact of him doing that made Donna think, oh shit, maybe this is all a bunch of bullshit. So finally, she calls a higher level manager at McDonald's, because the guy that claimed to be a cop on the phone, he had said a couple times, oh, I've been in contact with, your regional manager or whatever it is. And he says, do this, that, and the other thing. So she calls the regional manager, and that guy says, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been asleep all day, whatever. I haven't been talking to a cop, or I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. So finally, she realizes that this whole fucking thing has been a fraud. Now, what they managed to do, one quick thinking employee, remember back in the early 2000s when somebody called and then they hung up, you could star 69 and it would like
go back,
call them back.
Call back, yeah.
So one employee,
that was some high tech shit. When
yeah.
it came
So
out,
like
too.
as soon as that guy hung up, one of the employees said, "Oh, we have to like before another call comes in, we have to star 69 him so we can figure out what his phone number was." So they star 69 him and they got the phone number of his telephone.
Mm-hmm.
So
was it a phone or was it a calling card thing?
it ended up being a calling card.
Right.
Yeah. So what ended
Remember
up
how high tech? Remember how high tech fucking caller ID used to seem back in those days? It was for you kids that don't know how good you have it. We come from a time where if you wanted to know who it was, you had to damn answer the phone, and it was too late then.
That's
the shit sucked, man. Well, so they ended up offering this service called caller ID, and it was this little tiny box you'd have next to your phone, and you could see what phone number it was calling you.
Which they do on cell phones now.
They do on cell phones now too, but back in those days, that was a big fucking deal.
It was a big fucking deal.
And it was I don't think it ever showed the name. I don't think it never showed any name. It was just a number, I think.
Now I can't remember.
I don't think it had any names.
No, I think it did, because
Yeah.
I think we had one that had it up. So I think you could get different versions of it.
Right. And if you didn't want to answer, you just let that shit ring.
Which is what I do with
Being
my cell
slick,
phone now.
yeah.
It's like I never
Being
fucking
slick.
answer my phone.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
I
but you had to
figured
pay extra. I think you paid an extra $20 a month for caller
you did.
ID.
It was very expensive.
Yeah.
We had it for a little while, but
Back
yeah,
in
it
the
was
Stone
too
Age.
expensive. It was. I know. Like I said, I wouldn't go back to that fucking shit. So, all right. So at this point, the caller has hung up. They've star 69. They got his phone number. Donna Summers is freaking out because she can't believe she fucking fell for this shit. She is like just falling over herself, apologizing to this poor little fucking girl, Louise, who has been stuck in this fucking office naked for 3.5 hours at a fucking McDonald's getting sexually assaulted. So, so at that point they called the real police. They arrested Walter Nix on a charge of sexual assault and then started investigating to see if they could find who had made the phone call. Now, as it turned out, there was a surveillance camera in the office, as there are in most fast food restaurant offices. Donna Summers watched the surveillance tape later that night and saw her fiancé doing all that shit to that little girl.
Yeah.
And, not surprisingly, broke their engagement.
Right.
She didn't kill him, which
Right.
is what I would have done.
Yeah. That dude should have known. That dude should have known.
Yeah.
He did know. Come on.
That's what I mean. After a certain point,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm willing to give the victims a lot of leeway in this because, if somebody calls it, as long as it sounds like a reasonable request. But once
That was a grown man, man.
Once
He
it
knew.
gets into jumping jacks and,
Yeah.
hey, have her give you a blowjob, at that point, it's like, what possible thing could you be investigating with that?
The only thing that I can make out of that situation, that somehow that the dude on the phone eased that guy into it so slowly, he thought it was too late.
I think that's an issue.
I think he kind of got resolved, and he didn't want to admit to himself and to others that he had been taken.
I think that happens a lot. And I think that a lot
But
of
when they
people...
say blow her, when he could make her blow you, come on, man.
That's what I mean. That seems like it would be like
Come
a line
on,
too
man.
far. But as I said, like you said, I think that's why that guy was so good at this, is because some of the early stuff that he said sounded kind of reasonable. And they said he sounded kind of like a cop and he sounded like he knew what he was talking about. And then he just gradually like ramped it up until, like you said, you got to a point where you're doing this stupid shit because you didn't want to admit that you've been fooled this whole time, like for 2 hours or however long you're on the phone with this douche.
But there's got to be some kind of point where the spell is broken.
Yeah.
Where boom, you know what I mean? Where
it's interesting that it took this other guy, this maintenance man at the McDonald's who was in there that Donna Summers asked to come in, that guy talked to the guy on the phone for 2 seconds, was like, fuck you, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what it took for Donna to finally wake up and be like, oh, maybe this whole thing has been a scam.
That's because that guy wasn't warmed up. He didn't get sucked
he had
in.
only just come in.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So when he got on the phone, he was going from 0 to 90 in a second. He went, oh, no.
No.
Yeah, 'cause he hadn't been,
I'm not doing that.
He hadn't been eased into the con.
Right. Yeah, because like I said, this
He
has been
hadn't
going on like
invested in
all
it.
afternoon.
He
Right.
hadn't invested in it.
So after that, like I said, Walter Nix got arrested, and they started trying to find out where the calls had come from. Now, when the cops like started doing like a search on the internet and stuff, they discovered that there had been several, many other incidents of this same type of thing occurring over a bunch of other states. So they contacted a bunch of other, police departments in other areas where that had happened, and were trying to coordinate with that. Now, at first, they were thinking, because this guy was clearly a pervert, they thought that he was calling from a payphone where he could see, because apparently the police station was really close to that particular McDonald's. So they thought that he was calling from a payphone where you could see both of them, because they thought that he'd get his jollies on seeing the people.
They didn't understand the power of imagination.
Right, I guess not.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, the dude, and like I said, this McDonald's was in fucking Kentucky, the dude was calling from Panama City, Florida.
Yeah. He's a Florida man.
Yep.
He's a Florida man.
Sorry, you guys.
Yeah. We live in Florida. We know all about Florida.
I was born in Florida.
Yeah. In Florida right now.
I'm a Florida woman.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, so he was calling from Panama City, Florida. The call was made with an AT&T phone card, and that most of these cards were purchased at Walmart. So they went to the Panama City Walmart. They, got subpoenaed all their, cameras and shit like that. So they're trying to find this fucking dude. Now, they also found out that that there had been like some other scams, like similar scams going on in the Boston area, and they had pictures of the dude's back or something like that. And then some of the Walmarts had pictures of kind of his front. So they weren't super clear, but they were able to get, like kind of a composite sketch of what he looked like. So they found the guy that bought the phone cards in the Walmart in Panama City, Florida, was wearing a correctional officer's uniform from a private security firm called the Corrections Corporation of America. So they think that this was the guy that did it because the same dude that they saw on the Panama City Walmart tapes was the same guy that they saw in the Massachusetts Walmart purchasing a phone card right around the same time that there was a similar scam happening in that
Sounds
city.
like something I want to be a cop would do.
Yeah, and when they found... so this guy that they found, his name was David R. Stewart. They found him through, like... They narrowed it down, and then they went, to the Corrections Corporation of America and went through all their personnel records.
Prison guard.
And they found... Yeah. He was a married guy.
Yeah.
He had 5 kids. So he got arrested. Now, they asked him if he had ever purchased a phone card, and he said no, but when they searched his house, they found several phone cards, and found by tracking the numbers or whatever that they had been used to call at least 9 restaurants in the previous year, including a Burger King in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And they were able to determine that that was the same. They called the manager there, and he said, yeah, we did get a call on that day, like a scam call on that day where they attempted to get somebody to strip naked or whatever.
That was him.
Yep. So they also found
Florida.
when they...
Florida strikes
fucking
again.
Florida fans. Like I said, sorry, you guys.
Yeah, and look... just for people who aren't in the United States, you can't really, Florida comes up a lot. But you have to understand that, like, Florida's would be like the equivalent of a European country in a certain way. It's a vast state
It's very large,
with a lot of different kind of people. There's this British guy, he's on YouTube, calls himself Sargon of Akkad. He was here recently. He took his family to Disney World. Evidently, British people go to Disney World quite a bit. But he did a video looking out his hotel window. He's out on the balcony. And he was just blown away by Florida. How hot it is. He said it was like being covered in wet blankets. And that's exactly what it's like outside.
Accurate.
And then he was just looking out over the damn swamp around Disney World in that area. And it does, I guess, if you're not used to it, if you come from a place that's very urbanized, like he was. I don't know exactly where he's from in England, but, I guess it would be mind-blowing to see this state from the ground, I guess, but...
It's for sure swampy.
Yeah, we just take it for granted. It's Dagobah. It's Dagobah with
well,
a bunch of cities.
what a lot of people don't know is that where Disney World is now, I mean, until the early 70s, that was a swamp.
Just swamp. Yeah.
There was nothing there.
Yeah. It's got islands out there with abandoned amusement parks on it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a trip. It's big. The state is big. About how big would it be? Is it about the size of France?
I don't know. It's hard to tell because it's long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
it's long and skinny.
Yeah.
It's only about 150 miles across.
Yeah, but it's
it's
long.
really long.
And it's
ways.
very diverse. The Panhandle is more like Mississippi, but like a swamp version of Mississippi.
It's super rednecky.
Yeah. And then when you go down to the very south, it's basically kind of like Cuba.
It's Cuba and like super rich white people.
Yeah, and with a skyline just built on cocaine. You know, that goes back to that Miami Vice era.
Yeah.
Basically, all the damn big housing developments and everything was all cocaine money. Just that particular town, it's mafia controlled, basically. Or they were the ones that built it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's but we're in Orlando, you know. Orlando's like the new Hollywood, really.
Well, because like I said, until
Disney owns everything.
Until the early 70s, there
Yeah.
wasn't much of anything here. So
You're
pretty
right.
much everything is fairly new, like in
Yeah.
the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah, and everybody we know works in some way for Disney.
A lot of people do
A lot of people
around
we
here.
know,
It's
yeah.
a very large employer.
Yeah, it's so and now that Disney owns basically it owns all of Hollywood, they own everything. Now, all the fucking big franchises, they own Star Wars and evidently they bought Predator and Alien and everything. They're gonna start making those. So this is the new Hollywood. And it does remind me of the way California was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It does. This reminds me of Southern California. But a tropical version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're searching this dude's house, and like I said, they found all these fucking, phone cards that corresponded to like other similar scam calls that had taken place in other parts of the country. They also found a shit ton of applications for jobs in the police department, a whole bunch of magazines about police, like police work and stuff like that, police style uniforms, guns, holsters. So he was another cop groupie.
Yes, that's why he was so convincing.
Yeah.
Because he had studied all
Because
the
he had
cop stuff.
studied all up on
And
it,
he
so
was
he
already-
could talk like a cop.
He was already a prison guard, so he, was used to that culture.
Mm-hmm.
So he had the confidence to pull off being a cop to civilians.
Yeah, which, like I said, that's why his scam worked so many times. Yeah. Now, he was actually, as I said, he lived in Florida, but they extradited him to Kentucky about this particular case because they thought that they could get him on various charges, among them impersonating a police officer, obviously, solicitation of sodomy, and various other things. Now, if he had been convicted, he would have gotten 15 years in prison. However, he was sadly acquitted.
Yeah.
Because they felt like they didn't have enough evidence, even though they found all the phone cards and all that other kind of shit too. It's whatever. So they did say, though, that once he was arrested, and put on trial, even though he was later acquitted, no more of those calls were reported after that time, which makes me think that they were all him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, it was him.
Yeah. Allegedly, yeah. I guess we could say, because he did get acquitted, but I still think it was
too many connected dots right there.
Yeah, that just seems like too perfect.
Maybe it wasn't something that wouldn't stick in court, but you pretty much know that that's him.
Yeah, and I suspect that probably law enforcement thought that as well, and were probably really pissed that he got off with it. But he did apparently stop, or at least none of those similar kind of things have been reported afterward.
On the upside, no one was hurt or killed physically other than just, molesting girls by damn remote control, which is bad. But at least you're not talking about a serial killer.
True.
Even though that's like something a serial killer would think about, if you ask me.
That's what I mean.
A lot of serial killers start off with shit like this and peeping Tom stuff.
And I was thinking about that when I was reading about these fucking assclowns of PrankNet. I was thinking about that because I was like, you know what? These guys are clearly not as bad as serial killers, but it's the same type of shit. It's just a matter of degree.
Yeah. A lot of them kind of start off with this kind of shit.
Yeah, because it's basically treating another person as an object for your own amusement or edification, and that is a very similar... that is a very dangerous road to go down.
Most serial killers start off with, like, scam shit like this and peeping Tom stuff, and, they start off with little stuff.
Yeah.
Now, some of them go on to be serial killers. Now, most of these people that do scam shit, like most of them don't go on to be serial killers.
Yeah.
But this is something that they have in common with serial killers. You know what I'm talking about?
And I was thinking
Yeah.
about that exact thing. Like I said, obviously they're not as bad, but it's a matter of degree. And
Matter of
it's,
degree,
it's on
yeah.
the same path
Yeah.
that ends in serial
It's one
killer.
of the stepping stones.
Because it's basically a type of
Yeah.
sociopathy is what it
Yeah.
is.
Well, it's a big fantasy life taking over.
Yeah.
Like, who fucking sits around and fantasizes about this shit? You know what I mean?
And he can't even see it,
Yeah.
which is really
You
very
can't-
strange to
You
me.
sit around, you're fantasizing about this shit, and then you
I mean, not
do
that it would be better if
And
you
then-
could see it, but that'd be creepier,
Yeah.
but still.
And then you do it, right? And that's not enough. You got to do it again.
Yeah.
Then you do it again. And then you do it again.
He did it
So
dozens
you got
of
some
times.
damn issues if you can't work this kink out of your system. You know what I'm talking about?
Where did his wife know?
I
I
don't
bet
know.
she didn't. She's like, why are you on the phone all the time? Who are you talking to?
There's people into some weird kinky shit. But you think that fucking once you do it, you get it out of your system. Now this motherfucker gets worse.
Yeah, he just kept
That's why
on
I don't-
fucking doing it.
I don't really get serial killers because if they have a weird fantasy, right, that involves killing somebody, why isn't it immediately kind of like satisfied where, you know what, that was just a fantasy and it wasn't that good, you know, I don't have to do it anymore because I already did it. For some reason, no, they're going to do it again.
Because they always think if they do it again, it'll be better next time.
That's what they're thinking.
That's
they're
what it is.
totally fixated. Totally
Yeah.
fixated. And I guess it's a personality type. It's like some kind of an addicted personality type.
Well, yeah, they have to keep, like,
Yeah.
getting a bigger and bigger,
There's-
like, rush out of it.
There's nothing in my sexual drive, you know what I'm talking about, that possesses me in that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And I think
That's what I mean. It's, yeah, it's very strange.
And I think that's for most people.
Hopefully.
You know what I mean?
I'd be really scared to go
Yeah.
outside of my house if it
You
wasn't.
must have some strong ass feelings if you got to fucking, you know what I'm talking about? You got to think about one aspect of sexuality just over and over again.
I
No
just
matter what
wonder,
that-
like like I said, this particular guy, it's just, this fascinated me so much because it's just so weird. It's so weird and specific.
Yeah.
How do you even
remote control
think of that?
molestation.
How do you even think of that? It's just very weird.
It's a power thing.
I guess. But like I
getting
said,
off
he's
on
not
power.
even seeing it.
No, but
Which
people
is
are
odd.
people are obeying him.
Yeah.
Just his words.
And he's hearing about it.
Yeah,
He's hearing
and
about it.
and they're
It's weird.
telling him about it,
Yeah.
and he's just getting off on that.
I guess.
That's some weird shit.
It is.
Obeying his commands.
That's what I mean. It's like fucking weird. I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah.
Well, that's why he wanted to be a cop. They got some dudes out there that fucking want power so badly they're gonna.
and I
put
wonder
on a
why they
uniform,
wouldn't
be a
let
cop.
him.
It's a weird dude, man.
Yeah, so even though this douche got acquitted, they did go a little bit into, like, if you go on the Wikipedia page, they go a little bit into, like, the aftermath of it. Poor little Louise, who was only fucking 17, she had actually been planning on going to the University of Louisville in Kentucky. She was going to be a big pre-med student, but she ended up not wanting to do that because she ended up having, like, a lot of, because they had to treat her for a post-traumatic stress disorder. Like after things, so she had had a lot of problems after that. She did actually end up getting a fairly large settlement from McDonald's because at the court case, see, McDonald's tried to say, oh, well, you guys shouldn't have fallen for it. Susan or Donna Summers, she shouldn't have, there's a thing right in the handbook that says, no strip searches, no people that don't work there are not allowed in the office. She let her fiance in the office and shit like that. So she did shit to break the law too, or break the rules too. But in the end, they did actually end up getting a little. I think Louise actually ended up getting 1.1 million, and I think Donna Summers got 400,000 or something like that. So they did both get a settlement, and McDonald's does actually have that specific thing in their handbooks now, and it's in all their training regimes and stuff, because they kind of got in trouble for not addressing it, because like I said, it had happened at other McDonald's stores prior to this, and even one of their security, their high up security guys had said, hey, we should probably put this in the training program or something like that, and the McDonald's corporate hadn't done it. So they had been warned about it and hadn't acted on it, so that was one of the things that kind of got them in trouble later on. So they actually did have to pay out. It wasn't a huge settlement, but they did actually have to pay out some. So as I said, Walter Nix, the guy that, the fiance that did all the shit to the girl, he actually pleaded guilty to sexual abuse, sexual misconduct, and unlawful imprisonment because he wouldn't allow the girl to leave the office. He got a plea deal, in exchange for his testimony against David Stewart, the caller, the alleged caller. Now, Walter Nix ended up getting 5 years in prison for sexual assault.
Okay, so he did time.
So he did do time,
Yeah.
because, like I said, that's obviously...
You should have known.
You should have known. No one was there. Like,
Right.
it wasn't a situation like the guy that your uncle knew. It's
Yeah.
like no one had a gun to your head.
Big
There was
G.
no one there. It was just
Yeah.
a dude on the phone telling you to do this shit.
Yeah.
And he should have known better.
Yeah, they told him, they said, man, get your clothes off. You get your clothes off too. He goes, go ahead, get it. Get going. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And in that case,
yeah,
it's like...
you talk about performance anxiety.
Well, yeah.
He was trying to, like that, and they started busting up laughing, and they just ran.
That's fucked up, like I
Yeah.
said. This kind of shit's fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, if you haven't seen the movie Compliance, you should definitely check it out. It's actually a really accurate portrayal of what happened on the actual thing. I have seen interviews with Donna Summers. She actually kind of did the rounds on talk shows and stuff like that, like after this kind of hit the media. And, I mean, she looks like a very average, like dumpy, middle-aged woman, middle manager type person. And, she's like, oh, people ask me all the time. It's like, how can you be so dumb? It's like, how can you fall for this and stuff like that? But she said, you weren't on the phone with this guy. He was really persuasive. And she's like, I wasn't the only one that fell for it. He called like people all over the country and they fell for it too. So it's like, yeah, she's got a point there. It was kind of dumb, but it's like, what are you gonna do? You got some fucking dude on the phone like telling you. But yeah, check out the movie Compliance. It's really good. Now, I also want to talk about like, where are we at time? Okay, so we're already at 1 hour. Shit, I knew this was gonna happen.
I gotta refill my drink.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, I want to take a break right now, and when we come back, I want to get into talking about PrankNet, and we'll talk about that. We'll see how long that takes, and if we have time, I'll just get a little bit into like the Milgram experiment and stuff like that, because it's a little bit relevant to this type of stuff. Because like I said, it's people had obeying authority and shit like that. That might not take that long to do, but I do want to get into this PrankNet shit because, oh god, these dudes are assholes. I just wanted to like fucking punch them through the fucking computer screen. All right, so we're gonna take a break right now, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
What you doing? What you doing underneath there? You having fun? You hiding? You act like you're cold. It's not cold. What you doing? Hey, damn bud. You hiding from me? Good. All right.
Conspiranormal Podcast proudly presents the Strange Realities Conference. Strange Realities. Come join us for one day of presentations on the paranormal with live music at night featuring Tim Banal,
The rise and fall of the flat earth theory,
Joshua Cutchin,
alien hybrid lore,
Joe Damari,
pushing the limits of reality,
Guy Malone,
Roswell 1947, what really happened,
Timothy Renner,
Pennsylvania Wild Man,
and added to the lineup, Mark Anthony Wyatt,
Cornish legends and UFO sightings,
Zach Hunt.
presentation of his book Unraptured,
Followed by a live recording of the Conspiranormal Podcast. More speakers and music acts to be announced. October 19, 2019, SIR Nashville.
Tickets and info at www.strangerealitiesconference.com. $40 at the door, $30 pre-sale.
You love true crime. I love true crime. And I've spent the last 3 years compiling a series of the most intriguing unsolved murders of the 20th century. It's called The Faceless Villain, and Volume 3 is available now. Featuring such fascinating cases as the Ketty murders, the Carrie Babies case, the Frog Boys, the Alcasar murders, and the Inokashira Park dismemberment incident, The Faceless Villain Volume 3 is an involving exploration of unsolved slayings spanning the years from 1980 to 1999. Pick up your copy in print or ebook formats on Amazon, or download the audiobook version from audible.com, and get ready for a chilling journey through modern crime history. All right, we are back. Now, have you refilled your drink? Yes, you have.
Yeah, I refilled a drink.
I didn't need to refill my drink because I still have some. Now, speaking of douches on the phone, as I said, when I was researching the strip search phone call scam, one of the links from Wikipedia linked to this thing called PrankNet, which I had never heard of, thankfully, and now I'm kind of sad that I know what it is. But so I started researching that, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to put this on the show too, because it's like pretty much related, because they were doing the same kind of shit. Now, this is not one guy, this is a bunch of guys. It's a collective. The two kind of main head honchos of it or whatever are Canadian, but the other guys are American. There are also a couple of women in there too, although they're kind of like on the fringes or whatever. This is basically, okay, what these fucking shitheels do is they will do a similar thing, with phone scams and stuff, and get people to do like really destructive or really dangerous things. And if they come out good, they will put them on YouTube as like hilarious, quote unquote, epic prank videos.
Sounds like the Jerky Boys. You ever heard of the Jerky Boys?
Yeah, I know who the Jerky Boys are.
Yeah, it sounds like that. That was like back in the day.
Well, and the thing about it too is that I never thought the Jerky Boys were funny. Or there was a show on Comedy Central called Crank Yankers, which was also very similar. They would do like crank calls, but then they would reenact them like with puppets, as far as I remember. This is back in the 90s. But they, as far as I can remember, like I said, I never thought like prank humor was like particularly funny, so I never like watched that kind of shit. I mean, to me, it just seems like really assholeish and like mean-spirited. So I never really watched it. But I feel like even the Jerky Boys and shit like that, when they did prank phone calls, they weren't like hurting anybody or destroying anything. I mean, yeah, it was annoying and stupid and everything like that.
Jerky Boys was all kind of centered around impressing Howard Stern, if you ask me.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of that as well.
It was funny in the day.
Yeah.
You listen to it now, and it's very juvenile.
Well,
but it was just in the spirit of the times, It was in the spirit of the times.
Well, I'm just saying, I thought it was stupid back then, but maybe that's because I'm a girl, so I don't.
Oh,
it's not really my kind of humor.
Definitely male humor, very definitely.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's stupid humor. It's like some of that I like, but it's like I never liked prank. It's even back in the old days. You remember fucking Candid Camera with Alan Funt?
Yeah.
Back in the 70s or whatever.
Shit,
even that, like, I used to watch it with my grandma and stuff, but even that, like, made me uncomfortable. I'm like, man, that's mean. Like, why would you fucking do that? Why would you fucking do that? I don't know. I just think
I guess
I don't like pranks. I don't like pranks.
I think the male sense of humor, especially maybe like the American male sense of humor, is it's kind of mean. It's slightly slightly mean spirited. Very different from, say, like British humor.
No, they're very mean spirited.
What's that?
Their humor is very mean-spirited.
Okay, well, it wouldn't work.
More than ours.
It's more? Okay. The British humor...
I found that when I was over
British humor that I've seen, it's all like very clever. It's almost kind of like two-faced. But
there is a strain of it that's like that,
but you realize you can't do that in the United States. You get your ass beat or shot. That's how a lot of those shootings happen. It's because of something somebody said. You know what I mean? So American sense of humor is not. It's not. What's a good way to put it? It's not backhanded in that way. It's more in your face. It's more obvious.
But like I said, having been over there, like having spent a lot of time over there, to me they seem much more forthright than Americans.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the humor that I see in movies and stuff.
Oh, that's not
go there.
Yeah.
Why would you want to go there?
It's nice there. I like it.
Go there.
Well, you've never been, so I liked it over there. But yeah, so I
went
always
to Europe, but I didn't go there.
I always found their humor much more. They're like taking the piss out of people. That's like their whole thing. So I always found it much more forthright.
You can.
They'll say shit to your face that an American would not say to your face.
An American would not. You could do that to with your friends, if you trust them. But you can't take the piss out of somebody you don't know here in the United States. You literally could get shot.
Honestly, these PrankNet guys, I'm surprised they have not been shot.
Right. Right. So
I think it was only because people didn't know who they were.
Right.
But now they do, because they've all been doxxed. Haha. So So these fucking chodes, there's a bunch of them. There's kind of just like 5 or 6 main miscreants. But what they would do, like I said, they would try to do like these epic, quote unquote, that was like their big thing. These epic pranks. They wanted really good ones to put on YouTube. As far as I know, most of them are still there. Like, I actually searched PrankNet on YouTube, and it looks like lots of their videos are still on there. I don't watch any of them because I don't want to give any of these fucking ass clowns any views. But it doesn't appear that they've been like banned or taken down or anything like that. So the shit's still on there. I don't know how old it is. Like I said, their heyday was kind of like 2009 to 2011 when they were like causing all this property damage and stuff. So their whole shtick, their main guy went by the pseudonym Dex. He was named after Dexter from the TV show, obviously, about the serial killer. What they would start doing, they started about in 2009, and Dex was actually a big fan of the Jerky Boys and of Crank Yankers and wanted something like that was much bigger than that. Thankfully, he never realized that dream, but because he never really got anywhere with this shit, other than everyone just thinking he was a fucking loser. But so what they initially started doing, they wouldn't use like regular phones. They actually started out using Skype because I guess prior to 2009, Skype's policies were a lot more lenient and you could like, have a kind of anonymous presence on there. But after they started pulling some of their crap, like Skype started investigating them. So then they moved to Powell Talk, which I guess was like a competing, like a competing service. But Powell Talk also banned them after they found out what they were up to. At which point, him and all his other little minions they did like a DOS attack, a denial of service attack on against Powell Talk. So they have subsequently moved all their shit to a thing called Baylux, which I'd never heard of, but I guess it's like a Skype-like service, but it's not based in the United States, so I guess like the same legal restrictions don't apply or whatever. So some of the shit that these assholes did. So February 2009, Dex, who like I said, he's the main guy, but he's not the only one. He has like a bunch of other ones that do this crap for him. And they also, when they do the pranks, they do them live online, and they have like a chat group, like a live chat. So they'll have people in the chat room like tell them, hey, do this, hey, do that, and how do you do the other thing. You know what I mean? So it's like a group shit. It's not like a huge group. They said the most that's ever been in the chat room at the time was like 200 people. But it's that type of thing. So February 2009, Dex calls up a KFC restaurant in Manchester, New Hampshire. Now he said that he was a manager from the corporate office, and he told the employees that they needed to douse the building with fire suppression chemicals, and then that they had to go outside into the parking lot, take all their clothes off, and pee on each other because the fire suppression chemicals were caustic, and by peeing on one another, the chemicals would be rendered inert.
Okay. That sounds good.
So three girls actually did do it. Now this...
Damn. It was girls?
Yeah. So
That is kind of
this prank, he actually did put on YouTube. I don't know if it's still there. But it was initially, the description of it was epic, because that's the big word that they use all the time.
Yeah.
They sound like they're like 5, but they're actually like in their 20s. And one was like way, way old enough to know better. So it said like epic KFC prank call, greatest ever. Dex successfully convinces the 3 female employees to undress fully nude outside and urinate on each other.
Damn.
Now, after he did that successfully, a few months later, he called the same KFC store saying that he was an insurance adjuster, and then talked to the same employees and got them to describe what had happened to them over again.
Damn.
Now, keep in mind, like I said, that he's doing this over a Skype-like service.
He's got balls.
Skype at this point.
They had balls there.
But that's not balls.
I wouldn't have the guts to call him back.
That's just being a dick.
I wouldn't have the guts to call him back. I don't think so. I'd be like, no, I think I'm going to leave him alone.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So keep in mind, it's not just him doing it. It's just there's other people listening, like on the live chat, like while this is going on.
I think you got to have gall to do that.
No, I just think you have to be a stupid asshole.
But how do you know they're not bugging? How do you know they're not bugging the restaurant? How do you know they're not waiting for you?
Well, the thing about these guys, and this is actually very funny to me, and if you want, like, go to the Smoking Gun website, just smokinggun.com, the Smoking Gun or whatever it is. And because there's really funny write-ups, because they were the one that doxed all these assholes, because they did an investigation into it. And the shit they write about them is like so funny. Every single one of these douches that they doxed is exactly like if you were making fun of some like fucking keyboard warrior, like fat, lives in his mom's basement, like can't get laid. Every single one of them is like that. It would be like a joke, but it's not. So one of their next things that they did happened on February 10th, which was only a few days after the other one. So Dex, and then there was this other guy who went under the name DTA Mike. They called a Best Western in Shillington, Pennsylvania, and said that they were both worked at the front desk. Now they told the people in the room that there was a ruptured gas line in the hotel, and that they needed to break the window of their hotel room and throw the TV out. Because they told them that the TV would explode from the gas.
I got you, yeah.
That was what they did. They did that several times.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did the same thing with another Best Western on February 19th that was in Santee, California. They just called random rooms. That's what they would do. They would either call the front desk and ask for a random room, or in the case of Motel 6, I think you could just call into the rooms without knowing anybody's name. Like,
Right.
They don't let you do that anymore.
Right.
Where you can just call the front desk and go, hey, give me room 305 or whatever, if you don't even know who's in there. They don't let you do that anymore. But they did at the time. So they would just call a random room and say, hey, there's a gas leak and you need to like break
Throw
your
the TV
windows
out the
and
window.
throw the TV out the window. So April 30th, there was another member whose name was Rollin' in the A. So you can see what level you're dealing with here. They just have like the stupidest fucking names. I just can't get over it. I can't get over it. It's like I was just reading this, and the smoking gun right up with them is so funny, because the smoking gun is just like, they were just calling them like by all these horrible names, like this doughy motherfucker, and it's like, look, he's hiding behind his mommy and all this other kind of stuff, and it's like, it's hilarious. So, okay. So Rollin' in the A, because it's so-called, he calls Prejean's restaurant in Lafayette, Louisiana, saying he's an official from the health department. They picked this restaurant in particular because this restaurant had live video streaming of its dining area, like on its website, and they wanted to be able to like show the idiots who were watching their prank call, what was happening in real time. So basically, they call the manager of this hotel, or the person working at this restaurant, and said that the pork there was tainted with swine flu, and that they needed to close the restaurant immediately and tell all of the diners to leave.
Damn.
So there were 75 people eating in the restaurant at the time.
Oh, man.
And everyone ended up leaving.
Swine flu, huh?
And it was live on the website.
Damn. Assholes.
That's what I mean. It's like,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm not a big fan of like prank type stuff in the best of situations. But these guys have done some horrible shit. And then like later on, when they got doxxed, like, you find out, like, what some of their prior convictions and shit were for. So, you'll see. May 27th, Dex calls a Hampton Inn in York, Nebraska, and made one of the employees set off the fire alarm. Now, then he called the front desk and said that, well, if you call the fire department, then they'll fine you. So you need to, like, so he gave them, like, all these instructions to turn the alarm off, which obviously didn't do anything or didn't mean anything. He said, oh, you have to go to this website, like, to turn the alarm off. It was a porn website. Then he says, okay, well, you have to break the front windows of the hotel, at which point they got a truck driver who was staying at the hotel, and Dex on the phone gets this guy to drive his semi-trailer truck into the front of the hotel lobby and break the front windows. So after that happened, like, Dex, he put it on Twitter. I just pulled off, this is what he said, I just pulled off the most epic prank. I had a hotel guest back his truck into the hotel front window in the lobby and break the window. But then he later deleted it because he thought he was going to get in trouble.
Damn.
Because, like I said, these dudes, their whole thing was like, oh, we're like ghosts on the internet. No one will find us. And they think they
found 'em.
They did get found.
Of course.
Because they're idiots.
Everything leaves a trail.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
They cocky was their
Yeah.
problem. They thought they were so clever and smarter than everybody, and they weren't. June 2009, There was another one at a Holiday Inn
I must say though,
Express.
these are some ambitious fucking pranks though.
Well, like I said,
They're very
apparently the dude that, and I'll tell you who, like, what is real, because they found out, like, what his real, well, his alleged real identity is.
Yeah.
Later on, but apparently it's his. He really wanted to make this like a big fucking deal, just like I said, just like Crank Yankers or Jerky Boys or something like that. He wanted to make it like this humongous.
Right.
He's just trying to get views, so he was trying to like make
Was he trying
crazier and crazier.
Was he trying to make money? Was there a way you could pay
I guess so.
All right. Because
I'm not really sure because he didn't have a fucking job. That's for
there's
sure.
going to be all kinds of fucking, you're going to be all. These are all prosecutable offenses.
That's what I'm saying.
So
it's like some of these are felonies.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys knew that, but
yeah, you do.
Well, and also they thought they could get away with it because the two top guys, Dex and his kind of second in command, they were both in Canada. So they thought that as long as they kept calling ones in the U.S.
Oh no, that might make it worse.
That's what I mean. It's like they thought that they could get away. But like I said, they were like, well, one of them was like, he's like fucking 25 or something.
Right.
He doesn't know shit. So they thought, oh well, because we're just calling ones in the U.S. and not in Canada.
There's
we're
all
in
kinds
Canada,
of weird
they can't
laws.
do anything to us.
There's all kinds of weird laws and weird agreements,
like,
extradition agreements
you're
and
wrong
stuff
about
between
that.
Canada. Canada could extradite you. I think Canada can extradite.
Yeah.
You know, they won't for the death penalty.
Yeah, but anything else. I mean,
else,
this shit,
they'll extradite.
yeah, they
your
totally
ass.
would.
Sure.
So, okay, so this is June 2009. They call a Holiday Inn Express in Conway, Arkansas. And again, he says he's from the company that installed the hotel's fire sprinkler. And he's like, oh, well, the system needs to be reset, so you need to pull the fire alarm. So then he tells the clerk that he's like, okay, so once the alarm goes off, he's like, okay, well, the sprinklers will come on unless you break all the windows. So they did that. They did the same prank in Gadsden, Alabama at a Comfort Suites.
So they get them to break their own windows
And set off the fire sprinklers, which flooded the hotel in some cases or caused like thousands of dollars worth of water damage.
Something so simple. You wouldn't think of that.
Yeah.
To call them and say, we got to check your fire alarm.
Yeah.
That's some weird shit, yeah.
And like some of these, it's like some of the shit that they did, like, because sometimes they would call like into people's rooms and it'd be like 3 a.m.
Right.
And then they'd say, oh, there's a gas leak in the hotel.
Right.
So you have to like get some towels wet and put them under your door and break your windows like to get air.
Right.
It's like it's 3 a.m. You're
Right,
disoriented. It's like I can understand
think
like
that,
why
right.
somebody would be like, oh, whatever. Oh, I'm going to die. Oh my God. You know what I mean? So I could see how people would fall for something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. Okay.
Even as ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing about, like, take your clothes off and pee on each other, I mean, that's a little more...
I kind of know
like,
how gas works, so I wouldn't really...
Right, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it almost sounds like a reasonable thing.
Right.
So, okay, so in July of that year, another member, I'm not sure which one it was, called a Hilton in our hometown of Orlando, Florida, said there was a gas leak and there was a family staying in a particular room. They called in this particular room and they said that you have to break the windows with the lid off your toilet tank.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that cost $5,000 in damages. The same month, another caller told 2 guests at a hotel that spiders were going to infest their room. And same thing, they got them to break their hotel window with the lid of the toilet tank. There was also another one on July 5th. 2 of the guys called an Arby's in Baytown, which I think is in maybe Texas, but that's actually where one of the dudes lived, they found out later, which, stupid. So he talks one of the employees into triggering the fire suppression system, which caused $4,600 in damages. He also tried to get them to break the windows, but they would not. Now, this one is super gross, and this... I feel like this is probably more serious than the other shit. So, one of the dudes, who was later doxxed as a dude, his last name was Markel. I don't remember what his fucking stupid screen name was. So, he calls the Homewood Suites in Lexington, Kentucky. Now, what he did was he first called a guest of the hotel, and he told this person that he was from the front desk of the hotel and that one of the prior guests who had stayed in the same room as him had hepatitis C. So he's like, so I need a urine sample to make sure you haven't contracted it. I think that's what he did. So he's like, oh, there's a doctor on site. You need to pee into a cup and bring it down to the front desk. So the guest, like, pees into a cup, brings it down to the front desk. Now, the same guy, Markel, he now calls the front desk and he says that he is an employee of Martinelli's cider, apple cider.
Oh, shit.
You can see where this is
yeah,
going.
see exactly
which is a
where this
real
is
thing.
going. Damn.
Then he calls a different guy, like a different guest, and tells her to come down. It's like, oh, we'd like you to sample some of our new cider.
Oh, shit, man.
So she drank it.
Oh, man.
She took one sip, and then he asked how it was, and she said, it's horrible. I'm not drinking another one. It doesn't even taste like cider. Because obviously it's fucking piss.
Damn.
And then he told her, well, he says, I need to inform you of something. You just drank that man's urine.
Damn.
So...
yeah, dude's assholes.
That's what I mean.
Damn.
Now, this particular one was highly prosecutable because that's what do they call it? First degree wanton endangerment.
Okay.
That's a Class D felony. So actually, Markel got arrested for that one, and they put him in jail for 6 months because you don't know what fucking diseases you could get from drinking someone else's urine. That's fucking disgusting. Yeah, so there was a bunch of other ones where they would call various hotels, have them break the windows, set off fire alarms, all this kind of other kind of shit. There was also one on October 21st, I think, also of 2009 or 2010, where one of them, I think it was Dex, he called Elizabeth Moreau, who was a reporter for ESPN, and she was staying at a Hilton Garden Inn in Gainesville, Florida, and he got her to break the windows of her room with the whole gas leak ruse. Then he started a conference call with one of the front desk employees of the hotel. He said that he was her boyfriend and that the broken windows were because they had had a fight. So he was trying to get her in trouble. And also he made like a bunch of, sexually suggestive statements. So the police got involved in that shit too. Now, this happened at a Motel 6 in Spartanburg, South Carolina. This was in November of 2010. Now, there was an old guy staying in the room. He was an elderly gentleman. So one of the dudes calls, says he's a hotel administrator, and he got the guy to destroy his television set. He said that there was hidden cameras in the room and that he had to break all the mirrors because that the cameras were behind there. He said there was a midget trapped in the adjoining room, and I'm saying midget because that's the word they use. Yeah. He said there's a midget trapped in the adjoining room and you need to try to bust out the wall and get him out. So the guy kind of went down to the sheetrock trying to get this guy's out and shit like that. Dumb. Yeah, so I mean it was an old guy. It was an old guy too. Now, once the the cops came and everything like that, they actually had heard some of the phone call and everything. So they actually didn't charge the old guy for all the damage to the room, but they did tell him to get the fuck out of the hotel. Damn. Yeah. So apparently, like I said, Motel 6 was kind of a pretty common target because at the time you could just call into the rooms without having to know the names of the people, that were staying in there. So here was another one. This happened December 5th, 2010. Two of the PrankNet members called a 22-year-old guy who was actually an Iraq War veteran. He was staying at a Motel 6 in Amarillo, Texas. One of them posed as the hotel receptionist, said that the prior occupant of his room had been diagnosed with H1N1, the flu virus. Yeah. And then he transferred him to the other PrankNet caller who was posing as a doctor. So he told the guy to induce vomiting. Damn. Then he said to drink some of his own pee. Damn. To kill the incubation period. Oh, shit. Then he said, I need you to collect a stool sample in a pillowcase and bring it down to the front desk.
Oh, man, how...
And then either one of those same guys or another PrankNet member called the front desk, said he was that guy, the victim, and said, I'm so pissed off with the service that I'm bringing a pillowcase full of my shit down to the front desk.
Damn. So what happened?
So, yeah. So the receptionist like freaked out because she
Yeah.
thought this guy was coming down with a thing full of poop. She locked herself in the office. She called the police. Then the police came, and it's just so there was just this whole like fucking clusterfuck. Then there was like, so they didn't get caught for this. That's the fucking thing. And again, the pranksters called back later. They actually called when the cops were there.
Yeah.
Got them. He was like using an electronic voice thing to like disguise his voice.
Yeah.
And he said that he was the mom of one of the prank callers.
Yeah.
And he got the police to put the victim back on the phone and made the victim describe the prank back to him.
Damn.
Posing as a mom of one of the victims. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck is the matter with you? What is the matter with you? Yeah.
That was an ambitious prank.
Yeah. Now, another thing, like, other than all these shenanigans that they're doing, another thing that he would do was that he would essentially hijack phone numbers from businesses in the U.S. and have them forwarded back to his own Skype account so he could fuck with people that were calling that particular business. So he had called, he actually did that to the Olympic Game Farm in Port Angeles, Washington. So he had that phone number forwarded to his own Skype number, and when people called, like, asking for information about the business, he would just make obscene sexual comments. He did the same thing with the Fun for All amusement park in Chula Vista, California. Also took over incoming calls to the Best Western Hotel in Jacksonville, Florida. That was for 12 hours. During that special occasion, a woman called, like an elderly woman called, asking if either her husband or like a male friend of hers, he was supposed to be going and staying at the hotel. So she called the hotel to ask if he had gotten there yet. And he said, oh, well, he's in his room having sex with a man and doesn't want to be disturbed.
Oh.
So...
Did she believe it?
I don't know.
Okay. Fuck.
But yeah, I mean, she thought she was calling because she was calling the hotel's phone number.
Yeah.
He hijacked the phone numbers.
These dudes were doing some serious damage.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
This isn't pranks. This is fucking criminal activity right here. He would also...
I can understand how a young guy would think that shit was funny because it wasn't happening to them. If shit was happening to them, it wouldn't be funny.
But that's like... And that's why I think somebody needs to do this to them every day until they die. Yeah. Which hopefully happens sooner rather than later. But yeah, so... He did the same thing to a Hilton Garden Inn in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He would, like, people would call there thinking they were calling the Hilton Garden Inn, and he was like, oh, well, there's no shuttle, so take a cab and the hotel will reimburse you. You know, so of course, when they got there, they were expecting to get money back. He also told other callers, just for shits and giggles, that the hotel was in the middle of a swine flu outbreak and or that they were in the middle of a hostage situation. So, fun. He would also, here was another really charming thing that some of them did. They would place ads on Craigslist, usually for kind of like free things like, you know, babe toys or, you know, trampolines, shit like that. And then when anybody called for the stuff, then they would get all kinds of abuse, usually racial epithets or sexual rants. One time they put up an ad for like a free trampoline. A 12-year-old girl called them, and Dex told her, don't get pregnant by a black man because they all have AIDS.
What's that have to do with the trampoline?
Nothing.
Okay.
They're just trying to get people to call them so they can fuck with them. A 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Ugh. So it's like, Markel, especially... What?
Well, you would think that the jokes would have something to do with that damn trampoline.
No.
Okay, just random shit.
They're not that clever.
Yeah.
Markel, one thing that he would do was he would actually troll Craigslist ads, particularly women that were selling like used toys or baby items or something like that. Then he would call them and he'd be like super nice, like he was going to buy the stuff and he was coming over there. So could he have your address? And then once she gave him her address, she would say, oh, I'm coming over there to rape you and kill your children.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, fucking special.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, the Smoking Gun... which is kind of like an investigation website. It's only 3 guys, but, you know, they break a lot of...
At least with the Jerky Boys, the shit was kind of funny.
That's what I mean. This shit is not funny.
Yeah, no.
Not funny. Not in the least. But yeah, so they started an investigation, and as I said, these PrankNet guys, like, were all about, like, oh, we're a ghost. We know how to, like, we're not stupid, and we know how to, like, cover our tracks and shit like that. It took Smoking Gun about 7 weeks of investigating, and they found pretty much all of these dudes. They found their home address and everything like that. I fucking love... There's, like, a 3-page article on the Smoking Gun website. There's a bunch of them about PrankNet, like, you know, when one of them gets arrested or something. But the one that's about them doxing Dex is really funny because basically they found out where this dude lived. He lived somewhere in Ontario. He lives in this dinky, like, $600 a month apartment with his mom. It's like...
How old was he?
25.
Okay.
He's older than that now, I think, but he was 25 when they doxed him, which I think was 2011 maybe, or 2010, somewhere around there. So they go to his building, which was at 1637 Assumption Street. They said it was just like this shitty...
You gave out the address.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Well, no, it was on the site. It's on the site. It's not there anymore. It burned
Okay.
down. Yeah, so he calls, and they just thought this was, like, the best. Because they go to his house. They were reporters.
Right.
So they go to his house and they wanted to interview him. They had interviewed him before, like, anonymously, like, before his identity was known. And he had been very cocky about how much he hated cops. And it's like, oh, I'm doing this as a public service. I'm doing, like, social engineering, like, to show you how stupid people are and they'll fall for anything and all this other kind of crap. So he thinks he's doing, like, some kind of... I don't think he really thinks that. I think he's just a douche. But, like, you know, that was what he told them anyway. So the reporters found his fucking house where he lived with, like I said, with his fucking mom. And they go to his house and wanted to interview him. They said his mom answered the door of this dinky little apartment. And then she, like, ran back in his room. And the reporter said we could hear them, like, whispering in his room. And then she said, no, he doesn't want to come out. And so, like, he's in there with, like, garbage bags over the window and stuff like that. And then this little pussy-ass motherfucker called the cops.
Called the cops
on the investigators. And it's like, they said it was so funny because on his little show, like, when he's doing all this, he's like, oh, fucking cops, and they can't find me,
runs
blah, blah,
to the cops for
That's what I
protection.
mean. So it's like, as soon as there's 3 reporters out there talking to him, he, like, they said that, like, he hides behind his mommy and, like, called the cops and all this other kind of shit. So, oh, they're harassing me and blah, 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 and all this other kind of shit. The cops came, but they didn't do anything.
Did the mom know what was up?
I'm not really sure. I mean, she seemed like she was protecting him, but I don't know if she knew exactly what he was up to. Because that's the thing, it's like I said, he just seemed like this dumpy loser that spent, like, all day just playing video games in his mom's fucking apartment. He didn't have a job. It's like, as far as I know, the only...
Well, you got to have a lot of spare time on your hands to come
Obviously,
up with this
because
stuff.
he was doing this shit, like, all the time. Because, like I said, it wasn't just the pranks and then he'd put them on YouTube. It's like, a lot of times he was, like, live streaming, or like live chats and stuff like that. So he was doing a lot of... Then he would plan them. He's
putting all this unused pent-up energy towards these fucking towards these fucking capers. Yeah.
That's what I mean. So it's like, so if, like I said, please go...
Get your ass in trouble doing that shit.
Please go to the Smoking Gun website and read it, because it's just so funny, because they thought it was hilarious that he's like this fucking dude who's like, his whole online persona as Dex was this guy that just sat there talking about everyone's pussies and how weak everyone was and how much he hated cops and all this other kind of stuff. Like I said, so, and then, like, he's just this idiot that, like, fucking... As soon as his fucking investigators, like, show up to, like, find out who he is, he, like, hides behind his mom. So, you know, it's just this whole fucking thing. By the way, Dex's real name is Tariq Malik. He denies it, but that's pretty much who it is. Everybody says that's who it is. Yeah. So, other than him, there's this other dude, and like I said, I wanted to get into this a little bit, because this is the type of person that you're dealing with, right? As I said, Dex, he didn't like have a job or anything. He had like some kind of employment like earlier, like I think he ran kind of like a game server type of thing, but it kind of went under, and he had to move back in with his mom, and he was
How do
unemployed.
these guys all know each other? How'd they meet?
They're online.
Just online.
Because most of them live only the 2 top guys live in Canada, but it's there's one in Texas. So
they never really met each other face to face?
No. It's just like, it's like an online community. Right. So, yeah, so that was him. The second in command is called William Marquis, And his fucking screen name was Hempster, because of course it was.
Okay, yeah.
Now, at the time all this shit was going on, this dude was like 51.
Okay.
So this is like all the other dudes
So
are
he
like
should've fucking
teenagers
known
or
better.
in their 20s. So it's like this skeevy motherfucker is like online, like hanging out, doing this shit. It's like, you're too old for that shit. Come on, man. He's probably like 60s now.
I wonder if he knew how young the other guys were.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
He didn't have anything else to do, so he's going to go out there.
I
and
guess
pretty
not. Now, he had, when he was doxxed by the smoking gun, they found that he had 2 prior convictions, one in 2004 for drunk driving,
Okay.
also one in 2005 for marijuana production. They also took great delight in pointing out that when he was convicted of growing marijuana, that he cried when the conviction was read.
Oh, that's how much time did he do?
I don't know,
Doesn't
actually.
say. Yeah.
Now, James Markel, the guy, like I said, who liked to call women on Craigslist and threatened that he was going to rape them and kill their children,
Yeah.
was actually one of the most prolific callers and members of PrankNet. He was actually arrested for one of the prank calls to McDonald's. Now, this guy, also fucking special, when they found out who he was, he also had a prior conviction as a juvenile for raping a 5-year-old girl.
Damn.
And telling her that he was going to kill her if she told anyone about it.
Damn. So his threats there was some truth behind it. He did rape motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Damn.
More than one of them did.
And women and children were not safe around him.
Nope.
Damn. What was he like physically, though? How old was he?
This guy was, I think when he was arrested, he was 21.
Oh, so he was a kid, basically.
Like I said, they were pretty much just all in their
Right.
20s, except for that one creepy old fucker.
Yeah.
Another one along the same lines was named Sean Powell. He had also previously been imprisoned for indecency with a minor. He had taken nude photos of an 8-year-old female relative.
Damn.
So he had actually...
These guys are the bottom of the barrel.
That's what I mean. These are just a bunch of scumbags. His big specialty was racist phone calls and also threatening phone calls, threatening women with rape and whatnot.
Yeah.
He was also charged with criminal mischief for his part in one call to the Baytown Arby's restaurant where the fire suppression system was set off. Now, interestingly, there were a couple of women in this collective that did participate early on in some of the crank phone calls before they got too off the rails. But they were kind of like around the fringes. It was mostly a dude thing, like you said. Probably the most significant female member was named Jericho Batsford. Now, she was older. She was in her 30s or 40s, I believe, at the time most of this was going on. She was actually a widow. She had a teenage son, and she had been in the Navy. She had done some of the crank phone calls early on. She said her specialty was calling pharmacies and like fucking with the pharmacists and stuff like that. But after there were a couple incidents where the prank callers would try to get like minors, like people under 18, to like call in bomb threats and things like that. And she was just kind of like,
oh,
nah,
fuck
man,
that. That's federal
man,
charges right there.
Yeah, she's like, nah, man, I'm out.
Yeah.
So now, predictably, after she left, she actually reported Dex and all them. She reported them to the FBI, which is good for her.
Yeah.
And predictably, they tried to fuck with her. They tried to call Child Protective Services and say that she beat her kid to get him taken away.
Damn.
They called a hotel and said that a male rapist with her name was running around, so they tried to link her name with a rapist. I kind of read a little bit of an interview with her, and she was saying, at that time in my life, I was kind of like fucked up. I was going through a lot of stuff. It's like I needed a laugh, and I couldn't find anything funny except cruelty. So she thought that was funny for a while, but then it kind of like went too far, and she's like,
wore
no.
off.
Yeah, it kind of like, and she's like, no, fuck that. And she did like turn them in. She did admit that she had made some prank phone calls to some of the fast food restaurants, to pharmacies and stuff like that. And she had also given money to some of the other members, like to pay for some of their servers and some of their computer equipment and stuff, which a couple of other women did too. It's like some of them didn't even make any phone calls. They just participated in the chats and would like give some of these losers money when they needed it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I have to say that Dex, Tariq Malik, his apartment building burned down later on. And some of the people in the chat room, like, did give love, because, of course, he cried about it. It's like, oh, Mom, my stuff is gone. Like, he saved his laptop, but that's about it. But, of course, he, like, fucking cried because his house burned down. And, oh, poor me, poor me. And some of the people in the chat room, like, did give him money and shit like that, like, wired him money and all that other kind of crap. So, as far as I know, a couple of the, like, at least 2 of them are in jail or serve time for that. For whatever reason, fucking Dex is still running around free, and as far as I know, that Marquis dude is as well. But there are charges pending against some of them in 4 U.S. states and 6 U.S. cities.
So they're probably all laying low.
And they're thinking about extraditing Dex from Canada to, like, face charges in various cities.
So they're all laying low right now.
Yeah. Now, as far as I know, like I said, I didn't want to look too much into it. It looks like a lot of the PrankNet, if you search PrankNet on YouTube, it looks like a lot of their videos are still there.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't want to give them any views, so I didn't watch any of them. So I don't know how old any of them were. So I don't know if they're really, like, since they've all been doxxed, it seems like it kind of fell apart. Like, they're not really doing it anymore, but maybe they still are. Because everybody knows where they are now, and everybody knows their names.
They're being watched.
Yeah.
It'd be easy to check up on them.
That's what I mean. And I kind of feel like after that happened, like, after the smoking gun, like, said all their names and their addresses and shit like that, Dex still came into the chat rooms from time to time, but he was, like, super wary of, like, new people coming into the chat room because he thought all of them were, like, journalists or, FBI agents or cops or whatever, and they were, like, trying to get him to, like, say some shit. So
He's probably not far from wrong.
Well, yeah, he's probably right.
Yeah.
But so I don't know how active any of this shit is now. You know what I mean? Because
It's been years. It's probably not doing anything now.
And I think at least one of them that did jail time said that he felt really bad about it, and, like, I was going through a rough time.
People think the online world is anonymous. It isn't.
No.
Everything you do
Your
is
dumbass can be
recorded.
found.
They can find you. They can find you. They can find you. They can listen to you through your devices. And they're starting to admit that now. Yeah,
It's just, like I said, it seemed to me, and the whole reason that a lot of these PrankNet members allowed themselves, even when they were still anonymous, they allowed themselves to be interviewed by various websites because they thought no one would ever find out who they were, because they thought they were fucking smart. Weren't fucking smart, were you? They found your dumbass. So, before we go, I think because we're only at 42 minutes, so we still got time. Since I, talked about them some, I wanted to talk a little bit about obedience studies and what has been done in that department, because that really does seem to line up with this topic because of people doing stuff that some random jackoff tells you on the phone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of shit has always really interested me, like the psychology behind it.
Well, they were actually, calling Child Protective Services and cops and getting them to do what they wanted to do.
So that's what I mean. I feel like it's really, like, anybody can sit here and say, oh, I wouldn't have done this, that, and the other thing if somebody just called and told me that. But it's like, until you're in that situation, I don't know if you really know. And like I said, that's why I kind of want to talk a little bit about the Milgram experiment, because a lot of people, before they did that experiment, nobody they polled or asked or anything, everybody said, no, I wouldn't do any of that shit. But a lot of them did. You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of them did.
Yeah, and that's what I think is weird, is that they can call the authorities and get the authorities to do shit. Like all that, swatting.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's, like, fucked up. So it's not just, like, people being dummies or whatever. It's like, if you call and sound authoritative enough and sound like you know what you're doing, and the request you're making doesn't sound super crazy and still sounds kind of reasonable, then I think probably 85-90% of the time you will get that person to do at least some of what you say.
That whole swatting thing, I think they could nip that in the bud if you just if you make it so the call can't be anonymous.
Well, yeah.
But evidently they will accept an anonymous call. Because, fucking SWAT teams have showed up at dudes' places, they killed that dude. You know what I mean?
That's
on the words of somebody else who made a false allegation. I don't know how a state can put up with that. You know what I mean? If you're going to make an allegation against somebody and swat them, they should at least know who you are.
Well, yeah, clearly.
So if they go down there and they kill that dude and they know, then it turns out that it was all a false allegation, you need to be held accountable, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I don't know how they do it.
See, that's what I mean. It's like, this is something that was always really fascinating to me, because I took like a whole bunch of psychology classes, like in high school and college and everything like that. And this is something that is always really fascinating to me. All these studies about obedience and conformity and stuff like that. Like how many people will do shit when they know that it's bad or they know that it's wrong. That fucking kills me.
Well, they're doing it because they know it's wrong. They like the fact that it's wrong.
I don't know if that's entirely what's going on, though. I mean, it might be in some cases.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so if you've taken any psychology in school, you will have heard of the Milgram experiment. They made a movie about it in 2015. There's a documentary about it that's called Obedience. So Stanley Milgram, he kind of got interested in... He had been doing kind of work in this area for a while, but he got interested in doing this particular experiment after the Nuremberg trials. Because I think it was Adolf Eichmann that said something about how he was just following orders or something like that. Yeah. So Milgram wanted to see how that could happen. Like how somebody could just be following orders and could do something that they thought was harmful or was against their moral code. So he was kind of interested in exploring that avenue. So, as you probably know, the first one that he did, and like I said, they say the Milgram experiment, it was actually a series of experiments. They did like a whole bunch with different experimental protocols to try different things out. But the first one and most famous was actually 40 guys. They did it at Yale University. And basically what they would do is they would have the guys come in, but then there would be them, who was like the victim, and then everyone else would be like an accomplice. You know what I mean? But the victim didn't know that. So you'd have the experimenter, which was the person that was in charge of the session. The teacher, this was the victim. Now, the teacher thought that there would be another person in there who was the quote-unquote learner. But when you came in, him and the learner came in at the same time. So he thought this was someone else that was doing the experiment. He didn't know it was an actor. He didn't know that they were all in cahoots. So, but they made it look like it was random. You know what I mean? Like they would draw, who's the teacher, who's the learner? But both of them said teacher, but the other guy said, oh, I'm the learner. You know what I mean? So the teacher was always the same person. So they would come in and they were told that the study was they were going to study the effect of punishment on learning. Basically, what you had to do was the teacher had to read a series of word pairs to the learner. And if the learner got the word pairs incorrect, then you were supposed to administer a shock of increasing voltage every time they got something wrong. And there's this big, very famous box that's in like a museum and shit like that nowadays because it's very famous. Starting out, I think they started out with 15 volts and then went all the way up to 450 volts, which the machine very clearly said on it, danger, like fatal dose or something like that. So, so you knew what you were getting into. Now, before they did the study also, they would actually give the teacher, who was actually the subject of the experiment, they would give them a minor shock, which actually did hurt. So they're like, okay, well, that was only 45 volts. So they could get a feeling of what it would feel like. So they would start reading these word pairs to the learner. Unbeknownst to them, the learner was supposed to get particular ones wrong at particular stages in the experiment so that the teacher would shock them. Now, obviously, the learner was not really being shocked. They just had like a tape or whatever of the learner like reacting to the shocks in increasingly distressed ways. Now, at 300 volts, the learner would stop responding to the questions, implying that they had either been shocked into unconsciousness or were dead. So at this point, the teachers would be like, the experimenter would say to them, well, you have to continue. If they don't answer, that means that's a wrong answer, so you just have to keep shocking them. Now, prior to Milgram doing this experiment, like before he'd even done it, he had like the, protocol of it written up and everything like that. And he surveyed psychology students, he surveyed other psychologists, he surveyed a whole bunch of people, and he said, how many people do you think will go all the way up to 450 volts? The average, people thought that it would be 1.2%. They said, oh, no, people won't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong! Mm-hmm. Oh, how wrong.
Yeah. No, probably most of them will.
65% went all the way up to, not just one time, 3 times, 450 volts. Now, I should note that every single participant did question the experiment. Was like, I don't really want to do this anymore, shit like that. So all of them did protest. All of them were clearly very stressed out. Some of them started crying. Some of them started having seizures. They all had very high stress reactions. So obviously they were very stressed out about it. And yet most of them continued anyway, even though there was really no punishment for them leaving. Now, interestingly, what they had set up, they did get paid for participating in this experiment. I think they got $4.50 or something like that, which was, this was 1961 or whatever it was. So that was a lot more money than it sounds like. But they were told, like, look, if you don't want to do this, you can stop the experiment at any time. But if the person protested, the experimenter had 4 very particular things that they would say in this order. The first thing they would say, the first protest that the person made, they would just say, please continue. The second time that they protested, they would say, the experiment requires that you continue. The third time, they would say, it is absolutely essential that you continue. The fourth time, you have no other choice. You must go on. Right. As I said, 65% of the people, and they were all men. The first one, aged between 20 and 50. So, yeah. So 65% of them did go on. Now, every single one of them went at least to 300, which was when the learner stopped responding to the questions. Yeah. But 65% of them went all the way to 450 volts and hit the person 450 volts 3 times. Now, they also did variations of this experiment. They did some with mixed genders. They did some with women. They did them all over, like, different countries to see if, like, maybe different people in different countries had a different reaction. Pretty much they always got about the same thing. The only thing that made a difference was a couple of factors. If the teacher, the subject of the experiment, if they could see the learner, if they were in the same room as them, compliance went way down. If they had to touch the learner, for example, put their arm physically on the plate that was supposedly electrocuting them, then it went way, way down. So the fact that they could see them, that made a big difference, how close they were. Also, how far away the experimenter was, if the experimenter was in the same room as them or was in another room. Also, they put another experimenter in there who wanted to stop the experiment. That would kind of spur more people to say they didn't want to do it anymore. So there was a lot of other factors that they worked with. But generally, every time this experiment has been replicated, it's been about the same, between 60 and 66%. When using these same protocols, will go all the way to 450 volts.
Yeah, people have a really intense, a really, really good hobby about making themselves feel morally superior to other people who kind of lose in history. Telling you, if your group tells you you have to do something for the betterment of your group or for the survival of your group, you'll do it, most likely.
Yeah, and they think that...
That's how it is.
Well...
Especially if it's an authority figure. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle or you are on. If your group tells you you have to do this, it's the right thing to do, you'll probably do it. When I was in the Army, depending on the context, if somebody said, Ross, you have to kill that woman, I'd probably do it. If the context made sense. If it was something totally out of context, no. But, if it was in context with the battlefield, then I would have done it.
Well, and that's what he was trying to show, that, these were authority figures. They were telling, they appeared to be doctors. They were at Yale University, although I should say that they did do a variation of the experiment that was in an office that didn't have any affiliation, because they wanted to see if, maybe it's because Yale and they have more authority and stuff. And actually, compliance did go down a bit to 45% rather than 65% when it was just in a generic random office rather than Yale University. But that's what he wanted to show, was that if you have someone there who is an authority figure telling you this is for, a scientific experiment, you have to keep doing it. And there's also the sense, too, where he kind of went into two things. He's like, there's either two interpretations of this experiment. The first one being conformism, and I kind of want to get into like Solomon Asch and his conformity experiments too, which were a lot less drastic than this, but it kind of shows a similar thing. Whereas, in that sense, this is like a situation where nobody wants to rock the boat. It's like, this is what we're supposed to do, and we're just going to do it. We're just going to leave the decision making to, the person in authority, because clearly they know what they're doing. Whereas the other thing is called the agentic state theory, where the person is essentially giving up their own individuality to someone else who is responsible. Because if you watch the documentary called Obedience, and one guy, maybe it was more than one guy, but they did show one guy saying that specifically. He said, if that guy is dead or if that guy is hurt, are you taking responsibility? He said to the quote-unquote doctor. So the fact that someone else was claiming responsibility for killing these people, or so they thought, that kind of made people feel better, because it's like, oh, well, even if the dude's dead, I won't be blamed for it. So there was some of that shit going on too.
Yeah.
Now, this study, obviously, I don't think you'd be able to do it. Now, it has been replicated with various other protocols. Nowadays, you can't really do it without some of the things change because of ethics and whatnot. You'd have to give people like more of a debriefing afterward and shit than they really got on this one. Although I should say that most of the people who participated in this experiment, 84% of them, when polled afterwards, said they were very glad that they, even though it was very stressful for them at the time, that they were very glad they had participated in it because it showed them something about themselves that they were happy to know. And actually, Milgram got a bunch of letters from people that had participated in the experiment saying, like, thanking him for doing it. So even though it did stress them out at the time, they were actually happy to have done it because they learned something about themselves and about human nature, and they thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, humans are weird.
They are very weird.
I don't really like using the example of the Nazis because they've just been overused and it's a very tainted subject. I like to better. I think using the Japanese as an example is a lot better because it's not quite as volatile. The Japanese were running around in World War II, cutting people's heads off with swords. A lot of them were women, civilians. Okay. And you look at it in a modern context, you go, man, that's damn insane. How the hell do you tell 19-year-old boys to go out and cut some woman's head off? Well, in the context of what they were ordered to do and the situation, they thought it was the right thing to do. And it's just amazing how your own group can convince you of that it's the right thing to do to cut some woman's head off.
The thing about it is that, here's the thing, and I was kind of thinking about this earlier, because I've watched like a shit ton of documentaries about this and read a shit ton about this, is that a little bit of obedience is good. I mean, let's use the obvious example of traffic laws. If everyone just drove their car wherever the fuck they wanted to, obviously it would be chaos, everyone would be killed, and everything like that. So you have to obey traffic laws to have anything resembling a normal commute to work or whatever. However, what they were interested in exploring is that, obviously these people that thought they were shocking the person, they were very morally conflicted. They were clearly upset. Like I said, some of them had fucking seizures. Some of them were crying and shit like that and did not want to do it, but still kept doing it anyway. So they were like, that's really the power of authority and how many people go along with it. Now, I should note that this original study, the Milgram's experiment, was done in 1961. Now, when they did the same experiment later on, like in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that, compliance was much less. So some people have thought that, obviously the outcome of the experiment was better known, but because late 60s, early 70s was more like a questioning authority type of thing, like more people were used to that, whereas, 50s and 60s was very kind of like, oh, we all have to be like conformists and like we have to do what people tell us to do and all this other kind of shit. So they think maybe there was some of that shit going on too. Now, I should say too that I think like the BBC... they have that illusionist Darren Brown. he replicated this experiment also in the 2000s, I think it was, and I saw like part of that on his show, The Heist. He got pretty much the same results. I do feel like there was one fucking psycho on there. Maybe he knew about the experiment and he was just fucking with it because it was on the show or whatever. But he went all the way up to the 450, and then he's like, "You need more buttons." You know what I mean? Like he was upset that there weren't more buttons, so he could shock the dead person more, I guess. But like I said, maybe that guy knew about.
Maybe he knew it was fake.
That's what I mean. Maybe he knew about the experiment. He knew what they were testing. Because I feel like the Milgram experiment is so well known that it's like, I don't even know if you could do it nowadays without super, super hiding it. Like your motive, because obviously everybody knows what that is now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're going to get like a non-tainted kind of thing anymore.
Well, that was just experiments.
Yeah.
I want to look at realistic examples. I just kind of asked the audience to do the research on the Battle of Nanjing, which is between Japan and China. And find out what happened there, and you'll just be damn appalled at what humans will damn do.
Yeah.
Okay? And think that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're talking extremes. Okay? Battle of Nanjing.
Well, and the thing about it is that...
And it involved lots of civilians.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some people have kind of criticized Milgram's experiment because, like I said, he got interested in studying, like, you know, what people would do, like, if authority told them to, because of the Nazis.
Yeah.
But a lot of people said, well, it's not exactly analogous because, you know, the Nazis, you know, a lot of them had that whole, like, you know, we hate Jews thing, like, going back for, like, centuries. And so it was kind of, like, ingrained in that ideology. And a lot of them, too, they said, now, some of the ones that maybe were doing the shit and weren't, like, you know, super jazzed about it, they might have been afraid that they would be killed if they didn't do what they were told.
It was peer pressure.
Right, so it's like, so the people that were, you know, involved in this experiment obviously didn't have that pressure. They didn't think that the experimenter was going to kill them if they didn't, like, keep going with the experiment. But I don't know, it's like, I still think it's an interesting insight because... the fact that so many of them kept going anyway, even though they could have left.
There was a really good program I saw on Netflix. That was, I believe it was Netflix. The British had a damn castle, all right, that they used as a prison for high-value Germans. And this castle was bugged. I mean, it had microphones all over it. And really, what they kind of had a cover story that they were there to be kind of protected and interviewed. But the real purpose of this high-quality prison, all right, was to record the voices and the conversations of all these Nazis. And they told stories about the stuff that they saw, a lot of it on the Eastern Front, and also the very early part of the Final Solution. Most of it where they were just wiping out Slavic people, all right. And the conversations that they had, very interesting. So they were very disturbed by what they were doing. Very disturbed by it. But because it was orders, they did it.
Well, yeah, and in a way, that's why, in some ways, I know that it's not exactly analogous, you know, to Milgram's experiment.
Right.
But clearly, everyone that was involved in the Holocaust was not happy about what they were. They didn't like what they were doing and were, like, stressed out, just like the people in the Milgram experiment.
They were also malfunctioning and blowing their own heads off a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of shit. And which you'd probably have these weird conflicts of, like, I know this is wrong, but they're telling me to do it. I did it anyway. They say it's helping our civilization.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what they're thinking.
But I don't really like it. I'm out of here. You know, a lot of them were shooting themselves in the head.
Yeah.
And that's why the death camps were invented. It was to save the German soldiers from having to kill people. You know.
Yeah, because they were like making it.
They were killing themselves. The death camps were. A lot of people don't really know how death camps worked. Death camps were basically run by German convicts called capos, and they were going to be killed too. And then they had Jewish labor running it, prisoner labor running it. The only people that really kind of had anything, I guess you could say, quote, freedom to move were certain very special SS type officers. And they were probably going to kill them too. I can't see how they would let them live.
That's what I mean. So even though, like I said, it's a similar thing, and you can see like the conflict with a lot of the people, because obviously everyone is not an evil motherfucker, and it's like most people, obviously
death camp personnels were selected for being fucking psychos.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of assholes in the world, but most people
can't do that job.
can't do that.
Right.
Which, thankfully,
And I
like
kind
I
of
said,
think that they were going to kill all those capos and kill all those SS guys that knew about those programs, and then they were going to erase the fact that those camps had ever existed.
yeah,
Most of them were in Poland,
yeah,
so the Germans weren't seeing them. You know what I mean? So I can't see how they would let those staff members survive.
yeah.
I mean, if you were going to do that, would you let those guys live?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
I wouldn't. They would be too dangerous to let live.
Yeah,
And then they'd go out and tell people about it.
yeah,
You know. So I think they were going to kill them all
yeah.
and erase it. You know.
But yeah, so like I said, I think that, some people have made the criticism, but Milgram was like, I was just trying to establish the extent to which people who weren't even threatened, who had complete freedom to leave if they wanted to, and were told as such, that they would still do what they were told, even if they thought they were killing another person. A large percentage of them would do that. I also wanted to get a little bit into, like I said, something a little less freaky. The Solomon Asch conformity experiments. Now, like I said, this wasn't as unethical. I guess this wasn't super unethical, but like I said, you can't really do it the same anymore. They've got different protocols in place now. But this actually happened in 1951, and Milgram was actually really interested in this as well. Now, in this experiment, what they would do is they would have one person come in, and they'd be in a room with a bunch of other people that they thought were other people participating in this experiment, which they called a quote-unquote vision test. Now, what this one person didn't know was that all the other people were actors. They were all Confederates. So this person was the only one that they were experimenting on. They wanted to see the power of conformity, the power of peer pressure. So they called it a vision test. What they would do is they would hold up two pieces of paper. One piece of paper had one line on it, and the other piece of paper had three lines on it of different lengths. Basically, all you had to do was you had to say, okay, which line on this paper with 3 lines on it is the same length as this line. And the right answer was very, very obvious. But all the Confederates in the room, the actors, had been told to give the wrong answer. And they wanted to see if the one person would go along with the group knowing that that was the wrong answer. Guess what?
You can get a motherfucker to blue.
Most of them did.
Answer. Yep.
Most of them did.
Yep. And I'm telling you, these intelligence agencies, advertising companies and corporations know about this. They use this against us.
Yeah.
They use this against
Well, like I said, okay, so...
They say all kinds of stuff that isn't true.
Yeah. They did 18 trials. Now on some of them, because they didn't want it to be too fishy, so the Confederates would give the correct answer on some of them. On 6 of the trials, they gave the correct answer. However, on 12 of the trials, they gave the wrong answer, what was clearly the wrong answer. Now, so each person that participated, 32%, which is a little bit less than I thought it would be, 32% of the people that were placed in this situation went along on all the trials and gave the wrong answer. 75% of the people conformed at least once, if not all the times. However, there were a rebel 25% who never went along. They always knew what the right answer was, and they're like, this is the right answer, motherfucker. But when they interviewed the people afterward, they asked them, why did you give the wrong answer? Like, when you knew it was the wrong answer. Pretty much all of them, I think they gave like 1% of the people were just dumb and thought that was the right answer. All of the other people asked, they said they knew it was the wrong answer, but they either didn't want people looking at them weird, like they didn't want to stand out because everyone else, because you had to give the answers out loud. You had to say like A, B, or C. So it's like they didn't want everyone to think they were weird or didn't want to go along with people, or they started to question their own judgment. Like everyone else says it's that, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not seeing it right. You know what I mean? So but most of the people did have like a lot of cognitive dissonance about it because they pretty much knew that it was the wrong answer. But it just like really, it's bizarre how many of the people would go along with it. I don't think I would do that. I'm not sure about the shock thing. I don't think I would have done that, but everybody says that. The conformity thing, I'd have been, the first thing I would have thought is that when they started giving the wrong answer to the line, I'd be like, y'all are retarded.
Yeah. It depends on who you are. You know, if you're just a college student, a faculty member you're going to see as an authority figure, okay? But, you know, if you're older or you're going to have a different perception of these people. I'm ex-military. I just don't see civilians as authority. So I would be like, man, what are you doing? You know?
That's not right.
So
Are you guys blind?
Right.
Are you all blind people?
Right. I tend to kind of want to take charge. I don't want to listen. I want to take charge, you know. You have to be stronger and more frightening than me to be in charge when I'm around. You know, I only rule and can be ruled by fear. That's it. If I'm not afraid of you, then I'm in charge. You know, that's just how it is.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, you're smart and you're allied to me. So you know what I mean? No, we get along good.
I was like, don't you pull anything.
No, we get along good. But you know,
I know what length that line is.
She knows how I am.
I do. I've known him a very, very long time.
Yeah,
even before we were going out, we were like best friends for like a long time before we started going out.
Yeah, our relationship came from friendship anyway.
Even though we're like total opposites, it's really, really funny. I don't know.
It's because
we're not total opposites.
Not total opposites, it's just that we're a good team because
yeah,
I can see things she can't, she can see things that I can't, and then we work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But interestingly, in this conformity study, pretty much just like in the Milgram experiment, if there were other factors introduced, like if they introduced another person, just one more person who gave the right answer, then most of the subjects would give the right answer then because they had like a buddy. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm not crazy. It's like that's the you're my friend and we'll both give the right answer. But I just thought that was really interesting the way I don't know. Like I said, because you can look at the fucking shit. The line is clearly, you can see what the answer is. They wanted something that was very, very clearly the correct answer. I don't think you could get me sitting in a room full of people to go along with a bunch of idiots who don't know how long a line is.
You couldn't do it to me either.
Like I said, I know everybody says that, but I don't think you could.
I'm used to sitting around.
Because I think everyone's idiots anyway. So.
Yeah. I'm used to being in a room where people don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right, exactly.
And when I'm going, no.
I just assume people. I just assume everyone's dumb.
No. Yeah. Like that's
they can't see.
Right.
Or something like that.
I'm used to it. I understand the low IQ world.
It's like I was kind of thinking about that, in regards to like the Milgram experiment, because I was thinking, would I have shocked a person? I like to think not, but it's like a lot of those people thought they wouldn't too, and they did anyway when they were in that situation. I would like to think I'd be like, fuck this, I'm out. Yeah. But I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
It's hard to say.
This is what, 1960 what?
1961 that was.
I wasn't even born, so.
Yeah, but they've done it other times since then, like I said. And also,
I think, depending on what phase of life I was in, if I was in my early 20s,
that's true.
Then maybe I would fall for that. But by the time 25, 26 had rolled around, no, I wouldn't fall for that.
Yeah.
Because military service makes you skeptical.
I think I might have done it when I was young because, not so much that, it's just that, when you're younger, maybe you're more like eager to please, especially if you're a girl. But now that I'm old and I don't give a fuck about anything anymore,
military experience
nope.
Gets you very used to the idea that there is good leadership and bad leadership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that you're looking for good and strong leaders that are correct. And you know how to weed out weak leaders that are always incorrect. We can see them.
Yeah.
Because we've had them.
Yeah.
We've seen them be eliminated, by the system. So we know.
Like I said, I'd be interested to see. I know they did a bunch of variations by gender and things like that. In the original study, it was a pretty wide age range. I'd be interested if younger people or older people would be more susceptible.
Well, I'm going through this. I'd be like, well, what is the mission? What are we trying to achieve?
Yeah.
What are the limits? What are the parameters of this mission? If this person dies, who's responsible?
Well, at least one guy did ask that, even in the original experiment.
Yeah, I'd be like, who's legally responsible if this person dies? Who's funding this mission?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? There's overarching questions that you have to ask.
Well,
and if
they
can't answer that shit, then you go, man, you guys are full of shit, man.
They did answer. They did ask. Most of them, they said pretty much all of them. Yeah. All of them questioned the experiment at one point or another. So all of them did.
Right.
All of them either said something like, who is responsible? Does it hurt them? Who is responsible if they get hurt? Am I liable? So they all did ask questions like that, but most of them kept going anyway.
They would have to get me on board.
Yeah.
Does this person know that they can die? who, what are we trying to achieve here? What corporation has hired this? Why do they have to? I mean, I have to know the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Before I could do it. Why aren't you pressing the button? That's something that I would have
that
asked.
too.
Why aren't you fucking?
That seems like the obvious question.
What do you need me for to press this damn button?
Yeah, it's like, what, you can't press the button? Your finger broken or what?
Yeah, that's one that,
I know, I thought that too.
Like, that would have come to my mind. All you got to do is damn press a button. What do you need me for?
Yeah.
So I would have immediately kind of thought of that.
Like, I think you could do this experiment again, but you would have to totally change the parameters. You would have to, change. You can't do, the shock buttons anymore. Because, like you said, most people would ask that very obvious question, why can't you do it?
Yeah, you press it.
You press it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to press it.
Right, I ain't pressing it. If I got to press it, then that means I'm center of attention. Something's wrong here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Why does me pressing it, why does that make a difference?
Yeah.
Yeah,
why
have you
something
hired
was
me
up.
to press this damn button? It doesn't. It's fishy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you would know something was
very fishy. And even at 20, I think 20 in my early 20s, I'd have meant this is some fishy shit.
Yeah.
Because why would they want my little 20-year-old ass as pretty as I am out here?
You had to add that.
Of course I'm gonna add that shit. Of course I'm gonna add that. Why my pretty ass pressing this fucking button? When I got a full grown ass damn man standing there with a clipboard and a white coat. What do you need me to press this button for?
Yeah.
Why is everybody looking at me? Because that's how I would.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, are you trying to kill somebody and blame me for that shit?
Yeah, I was dumb, but I wasn't that dumb at 21.
Yeah.
I wasn't that dumb. I mean, because what would they need me for?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, pushing a button isn't hard.
Got all kinds of people that can press buttons.
A monkey could press the button.
A monkey could press a button. You got to do the clipboard standing right there. You can press the button. Okay.
You do it.
Yeah. So I think I would have detected something was wrong.
Yeah. It seems obvious in hindsight. It's like, I wonder if anybody did ask that. They did ask other questions that you asked, but I don't know if anybody asked.
Why am I on board? Why do you need me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, like you need a patsy or something like that. You're just going to kill this fucking person.
Right.
They were screaming and
I would have thought that.
Yeah.
Why do you want me to kill this person?
It's like, I don't even know you guys.
Yeah, you want to wash your hands of it.
Yeah. That would seem like...
And then put it on me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that to be honest, I wouldn't have thought that there was no voltage.
Yeah.
I would have thought it was some kind of thing where they wanted, the ability to legally deny that they were responsible.
Well, nowadays you would think of it like it would be like some kind of weird fucking horror movie like Saw or something, where you were being manipulated by a serial killer.
I would have thought it was some kind of liability thing. And I'd be like, man, I ain't getting sued.
Right.
Fuck
this. Fuck your 450. Keep
Fuck
it.
your 450. I ain't getting sued. I'm calling the cops on you.
I don't know how much that is in 2019 dollars, but it's probably a lot more. All right. So how long have we gone on? Oh my goodness, for a very long time. I thought we might. I didn't even get to all the shit that I was gonna. But
Shut that shit down.
I got to most of it. Oh, okay.
Shut that shit down. I command it.
Well, now I'm not gonna do it. Just
keep it rolling.
Just out of spite.
Keep it rolling.
I'm just gonna keep it going all night. I'm just gonna sit here like this.
I don't care.
Just because I don't like being told what to do.
I don't care. Keep it rolling.
I don't care. I'll just sit here.
I'm drunk. I don't care.
It's right, he is.
Yeah.
All right, so we are wrapping up episode 160, that is. Hope you enjoyed it. It was, like I said, we kind of covered a lot of ground, and I didn't get into as much detail as I wanted about some of the things, but that's okay. It kind of gave a little bit of a overview of all these various cases, so hope you guys had fun. We sure did. Remember, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe. Go to Patreon if you want to support us, or you can go to our blog. There's a little button to donate through PayPal if you would like to do that. Give a one-time donation. It really does help us a lot. And we will see you on the next episode.